Good evening, everyone. I call to order the special meeting of Englewood Cliffs Mayor and Council. Today is April 18th, 2017. It's 6:22 p.m. I apologize that we're starting a little late tonight, but we'll catch up in time. We'll all get home for the Ranger game in time.
Yes, and Mayor, I apologize to everyone, council members, and the audience.
That's fine. We had a nice conversation. Come on. Roll call, please.
Mayor Kranjak,
Here.
Councilpersons Aversa,
Here.
E. Park,
Here.
O.
Here.
McMorrow,
Here.
M. Park,
Here.
Wu,
Here.
Borough Attorney,
Present.
Borough Auditor,
Here.
Borough Administrator,
Yeah.
and Borough Clerk. Everyone is present, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let's all stand and salute the flag of our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please read the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the press and posted as required. Date and time of this meeting was legally given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. This notice is on file with the municipal clerk and posted on the bulletin board. Minutes of this meeting will be made available to the public upon the completion of typing and proofreading by the municipal clerk.
Point of order, Mayor.
I don't recognize that.
Point of order, Mayor.
No, we're not doing that now. We have an agenda that we're going to follow tonight. Before we open to the public, I'm going to say a few things regarding the budget, which is what we're here for.
Oh, we follow Robert's Rules of Order, Mayor.
We are, and I have the floor, I'm the chair. And so what I want to do is go over the process that brings us here tonight to create a budget. And that process started back in January. And you have to keep in mind that as we do a budget, we're also trying to make Englewood Cliffs the best town in New Jersey, okay? So this is all going to come together and make sense at the end of this. What we do is we ask all the department heads for basically what they'll need for the year, okay, for the year 2017. The Finance Committee Chairperson, Carol McMorrow, Councilwoman McMorrow, met with them all. Lizette Duffy, Catherine Steinell were involved. William Wu was heavily involved when it came to public safety. And what happened was basically you get a draft of what they need. And you look at it and you have discussions. You have a meeting with them. And in some cases you have several meetings. Some more productive than others. You have the usual issues that come up in the budget. How much are we spending? Do you really need that? Why is overtime going to be so high? Those questions. And it's a matter of discernment, and you start discerning a budget out of all this. Then with respect to the council itself and the mayor, I participated, some council people participated, some didn't. There's emails going back and forth. Well, there should be more emails, but there weren't that many. Councilman Wu was very involved. Councilman Park was involved. We had 2 public meetings. The public gets to come out and basically what I think is akin to kicking the tires. There's drafts of budgets. People look at things and they question it, as they should. It's their money. It's the public's money. We're spending it. We're fiduciaries on behalf of the borough and the public. And that all culminates in a meeting which took place over about a month ago, where the budget is actually introduced, formally. And the way the law works in New Jersey is you have to have an introduction. You need 4 out of 6 councilmen, councilwomen, to vote affirmatively. And then there has to be a time period that goes by of at least 28 days where the budget would get voted on, up or down. That's why we're here tonight. We're at that stage now where we're actually going to vote to approve the budget, hopefully. Now let me tell you what happened along the way here this year. It's a little different than years past. When we introduced the budget, we had 3 yes votes, and we had a no vote. Councilman Aversa voted no. He said that he was 45 minutes late to that meeting, so he voted no. Councilwoman O voted no. The most interesting vote was Councilwoman Parks. She abstained.
I think everyone was here at that introduction, by the way, Mayor.
She abstained. Okay, now, when you're elected by the residents of Englewood Cliffs, of any town in New Jersey, you have an obligation to participate in the budget process, and you have an obligation to vote yes or vote no. If you abstain, you're basically telling the voters, the joke's on you, you voted me in, I'm going to be political. Because if I vote abstention, I apologize. If I abstain, what happens is, essentially, you're disenfranchising the mayor from voting. So you think, right? Because I break ties. If it's 3-2 and 1 abstention, there's no tie. So I don't get to vote. That's being political. Okay? And that's garbage. So, understanding what happened that meeting, I spoke to our great borough council here, and I said, Amory, let's talk to the state about that abstention, and let's see how the state views it, and let's get an opinion from the Attorney General, which is what we did. And the Attorney General said the abstention, for introduction purposes, votes with the majority. So we had the 4 votes for the introduction. So if anyone out there is telling you that we didn't, well, they're just wrong. And
The point of
I,
order, I would
no,
like to
I'm still
speak if you're
speaking.
done.
No, I'm not
Okay,
done.
so I
I'm
will
still
go after
speaking.
you're done, thank you.
I decide who speaks or when they speak.
Well, then
So
I will
will
request
finish.
in the letter that you
I
vote
will
to the
finish.
state of New
I
Jersey.
will- Time for a gavel, folks.
You know what, you're out of order, Christine, that,
Nope.
Council
So
President.
then what happened was, then here's what happens, okay? Now, I want everybody to go back to what I said initially. The state of New Jersey wants the boroughs to have a budget, okay? Why do we need a budget? Because we need to fund things. We need to fund things for our children. We need the rec programs, the recreation programs to be funded. We need the senior citizen programs to be funded. We need the senior citizen transportation to be funded. We need our employees to get paid. We need them to be able to work, get paid, and take care of their families, okay? So we need to do these things as a municipality. And the state of New Jersey will bend over backwards to make sure that we're doing what we should be doing as your elected officials. And if you're abstaining, then you're throwing away that vote, and you're telling everybody who voted for you, I have no place here. So, the budget also keeps us safe. Public safety. We have to pay our police officers. We have to fund the fire department needs. We have to provide for our ambulance. You get the picture? So who gets hurt when we don't have a budget and we make this political? You know, the way we do things in Englewood Cliffs, everything's got to be a fight because there's this political machine, I think about 200 people maybe, out of 5,000, who will burn down this town just to save their own political failed machine, okay? And this is what happens. The children get hurt, the seniors get hurt, the residents get hurt when you don't have a budget, okay? I'm here to stop all that. Now, going back, and this ties in with what I said on January 1st, I stood here, and I told you guys this, and there was more people here then, but this is exactly what I was alluding to on January 1st. So when I ran for office of mayor, I stressed positive over negative in our plan for a better Englewood Cliffs. Well, I was hopeful a year ago that this will be the new normal in Englewood Cliffs. There continue to be enemies of democracy, enemies of decency, and enemies of fairness, who every September and October slunk around town in gnome-like shadowy fashion, some are here tonight, spreading lies and defamatory statements door to door. So now, here's the important thing that you have to take away for you, okay? These enemies of democracy offer no solutions or ideas. They only serve up a helping of ignorance and personal loyalty to enrich themselves as they did in years past. So, here's what we're doing. Get the point? Get the point? Okay. You get the point, right? So basically, in this whole budget process, I'm bringing it back to the budget now. In the whole budget process, we did not get one substantive change or comment on the budget from Ed, Gloria, or Ellen. Okay, instead what we got an abstention from Ellen. And I sincerely believe that Ellen and Gloria spent more time trying to derail the budget than to work on the budget, because here's what Ellen wrote to the state.
I would like what I wrote.
Please
to
be
the state.
advised that on Friday, April 14th, I discovered that a memorandum surreptitiously sent by our borough attorney to your office, and this is an email from Alan Park
Yes.
to Christine Zapicki at the DCA, New Jersey, okay? This is the local finance person, okay? Along with the budget practice.
I
This-
would like to read my own email, please.
You know what?
This
You know-
memorandum,
Read my
you're
own
going to be
email
asked to
that I
remove.
sent to the state
No,
of
no,
Missouri.
you don't get to do that. You'll be removed. This memorandum was never,
You don't want to do that. You know what? We have the
This memorandum-
here. We have...
memorandum was
the
never
reporter,
disclosed to
Mayor.
any of the Democratic councilpersons
This is-
until
this is
yesterday,
not-
when a copy of said memorandum was reluctantly released to
That's
to
not
us
what's
after
on
it
the
was demanded.
email.
So basically, here's what happened, and then we only discovered said memorandum when Councilwoman Gloria O. called your office and spoke to you. No, I wish you would call us more often about the budget than you do the state. But here's the thing, folks. Remember what I said, after the introduction, I asked our borough council to deal with the state to determine whether or not the abstention vote created a valid introduction, and it did, okay? And it did. And you know, obviously, somebody's very upset that it did, because they're raising a fuss tonight, which you just saw. But anyway, this email went to the state, and it goes on and on and on, okay? And then what she writes is, secondly, Borough Council Anne Marie Rizzuto utterly mischaracterized the facts pertaining to my abstention vote,
That's correct.
when she stated that nothing in the record suggests that Councilwoman Park was opposed to anything in the budget. Well, if you were opposed, then you should vote no. No, not abstain. Abstention is a derogation of your duty.
You're missing the first two paragraphs of
So
the
here-
email.
You know what?
Then it continues, okay? We have Gloria O. calling the state to blow up our budget. We have Ellen Park writing emails to blow up our budget. And you know what?
And you know,
you
you're
know-
not being political right
And
now,
we're-
Mayor.
And we're here.
I want it on the record that he's being very political right now.
Actually, I'm not. I'm reading your email, so if you...
No,
You know what they
read
say,
my
never
email
write...
in full.
Okay, here we go. Let's all get to the truth here, folks.
Yeah, really. I mean, like, is this meeting about your
All right.
lecture, about, you know, what you guys did
No.
behind the scene? Or are we going to adopt the budget today?
No.
Or try to?
The borough...
Really?
The borough
Don't
needs to
make this into
understand...
political scene.
The borough needs to understand what you have done here, okay? So they go through this whole charade.
What we've done,
They go through this whole
secretly sent a
charade with...
memorandum of law to the state, to not disclose it to any one of us, and you refer to me by name in this letter.
If you don't want it read, don't write it.
I'm gonna read it.
Well, here you go. Okay, so then we go on, right? We have, essentially what happens is the state comes back and says, don't vote on your budget tonight until we review what happened. Okay? So basically, the
Why
state,
didn't we get that memo?
the Attorney General comes back and says, it's okay, folks, you could amend your budget as you wanted to today, and you can vote on it tonight, okay? So that's where we're here, and that's how we got here tonight. We had a couple obstacles and bumps in the road, but we're gonna move forward. Government needs to move forward, government needs to function, and before I ask Councilwoman Carol McMorro, who's the Finance Committee Chair, to give details about the budget, which I know you want to hear about now.
Point of order, I would
That
like to speak.
I want to say that, here's the thing. I say to Gloria, Ellen, and Ed that unless you're part of the
You read my
solution...
email, but you will not let me finish and read my email. What kind of democracy
Officer,
is
can you
that,
restore
Mayor?
order, please?
Really? Go ahead.
Please
Put this
restore order.
on film, in front of the media, that you will not let us speak.
You're speaking out of turn. I'm still speaking. So
You did the same thing to the
here
introduction.
you go.
Hence why I abstained.
Unless you're part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And if you abstain, then you're subject to sanctions as well. It's up, down, yes, no. To our residents, I say that every time you see these three, make sure you tell them and remind them what a budget is all about. It's not about them and their political party, it's about the town, the children, the seniors, the residents, okay? It's about recreation, public safety, education, and everything else that we get from our town and from our tax dollars. The other thing that happens is, when people behave like this, it becomes more expensive for the borough, right? Because now I have to ask the borough council to contact the state and go back and forth. And I thank you for that, you did a great job.
Point of order, Mayor.
I'm still speaking.
Point of order. When
Now,
you're done, I would like to have an opportunity to speak
No,
before anyone
We're
else.
following the agenda, okay?
We're following the Robert's
Chief-
rule.
And to the failed political machine... and-
Point of order.
I ask
Point
you
of
to just
order.
work with us, okay?
You know what,
You're
you're
not-
just going on and on about your
So I'm
lecture,
gonna ask-
about
I'm
what
gonna get into
you...
the budget now.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion, Mayor.
Officer, can you please restore order?
I'd like to make a motion.
Please restore order. I am the chair of this meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the 2017 budget with the following changes to give the taxpayers a tax decrease. No changes to the surfaces. Out of 2.2 million in
You have to
surplus,
stop. Okay,
instead of
Councilwoman Laura, would
realizing
you please speak?
1.3 million and leaving 914,000, realize
Officer,
additional
please remove yourself. The
300,000.
officer could restore
And
order. She
increase
does not have
the
the
amount of
floor.
revenue from construction-related
She
line
does not have the
items,
floor, Chief.
25,000.
You're
Thank
obstructing
you.
justice.
I'm done.
I second that motion.
Chief, this is my meeting. I want the officer to restore order. She's out of
I'll go back to
turn.
the officer, Mayor. But do you want to sign a complaint against her, Mayor?
No,
You're in charge.
Chief,
You want to.
Chief, if you're not willing to restore order...
You know what, if you sign a
You're
complaint
running the
against me,
meeting.
I'm signing a
Mr.
complaint
Mayor, you
No,
are-
no, you're bringing that up, Chief.
You are running the meeting, Mayor.
I'm running the order.
You're in charge.
I'm
You're
running the meeting.
intimidating
You're running the meeting.
us.
You're in charge. Take order.
He's intimidating us and getting away with it.
Everybody
No.
gets their chance to speak. Everybody should get their chance to speak, as Robert's Rules of
This
Order.
is wrong.
The attorney-
This is
Well,
wrong.
this is, I get to tell people when they speak, and this, right now, you don't have the floor. You were not recognized by the chair.
Because you won't recognize me, Mayor.
No, I understand that some of the things I said were disturbing to you, but you actually did those things. So now I would like to get to the budget.
That is your
Let's get to the
opinion.
actual...
We have a motion
Let's
on the
get to
floor.
No, you don't, because you were not recognized in the first
We have
place.
a motion on the floor.
You
We're
don't want to
following
save
the Robert's
taxpayers'
rule.
dollars, you don't want to hear the solutions now, Mayor?
motion after Carol does her
All right, we need the Finance Committee Chair.
Let the mayor finish.
Chief, I don't know why you're standing here right now, okay? I really need you to remove yourself as well, because the audience cannot see past you. The officer, the sergeant-at-arms of this meeting should be there. Chief, you can't stand there, because you're obstructing the view.
He's going on patrol.
Okay.
You know, I will be here if you need it.
Who's your desk officer? Are you on duty or are you off duty, Chief?
I'm on duty.
You're on duty? Okay. So I expect order.
It's your show, Mayor. Please, run.
You will have your opportunity, but this is a budget meeting, so I
I
need the
made a
finance...
motion, Mayor.
No.
I made a motion. We're
I want the
following the
finance-
Robert's rule.
I want the finance chair to
I
speak.
made a motion.
Go ahead, Carol.
There's a motion on the floor.
There's no motion, you were not
There's a
recognized.
motion.
You're not
There's a motion and
recognized.
second.
You don't know how to be recognized, so I don't have to recognize you, okay?
Well, you would
So
never
go with your Robert's
recognize me,
rules.
so how can I?
Can we please continue and try to hold a meeting here? This is an embarrassment for this town. Are you people, have you not had enough? I would like to
Just
just,
get into it.
really, chief, I respect your,
You don't want to hear solutions.
I would like to, chief, I respect your office and what you're doing. I'm gonna ask.
You'll have all the motioning chances you want, okay? But the finance committee chair needs to give her report of the budget to the public, okay? All right. Please.
I'm gonna ask the chief and the officer that's there. I'm gonna ask the chief that if he hears any type of interruption to please assist in allowing me to make my statements. Because under Robert's Rules of Order, no one is allowed to interrupt. They're supposed to wait.
We can't interrupt if there's a point of order.
There's no point of order. You're not making that point of order correctly.
But, no.
The mayor needs to
Okay, well, the
maintain
mayor's,
control of the minutes.
but if they're not...
Well,
listening,
I'm not
then
getting
they-
cooperation from
It doesn't
our
seem like
public
you guys
safety
even
officials
agree
again.
with each
Okay?
other over there,
I-
with the Robert's rule.
Chief, I'm asking you, I'm asking you, I am directing
Your
you.
attorney, she'll direct you on Robert's Rules of Order, and who's ever right is right. She'll tell you who's right and who's
All right.
wrong. Who, does she have a point of order?
She does not.
Okay,
She's
then
not
you're running the
recognized.
meeting.
She's
Then
not
you are running
recognized.
the meeting, then continue on running the meeting.
She's
You
not
will sit
recognized.
quiet. If you want me to remove
He's not
her,
recognizing
then
me
you-
I don't want
because I'm not
anyone
sitting on
removed.
the other side of the...
I don't want anyone removed, but I also want to get through this budget meeting. It's not fair to the public that you should behave this way. The Finance Committee chairperson is going to give her report now, okay?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to apologize to the public for what's going on up here, okay? I have my whole, speech ready to read, and I appreciate your patience in allowing me, and part of this is gonna be, a little off the cuff, because today was a day that I've never experienced before. I hope no one ever has to experience it again. And it is, I'm not one that's ever speechless, and today I was speechless at what was coming across my desk. I feel sorry for all the residents and the taxpayers that almost had to pay the price. And you can call this speech whatever you want to, it's a factual speech. Some of the residents out there actually have good questions. Sometimes they had to wait for their answers. I appreciate their patience. But they have good questions, not political questions. People, we should be working together and being productive as a group, and not just trying to get a gotcha moment on the other. And that's all this has been a gotcha, one after another. And there shouldn't be different sides, and you keep referencing different sides. Stop. The taxpayers and the residents today almost had to pay the price for the vindictive politically based, and they are politically based actions of Ed, Gloria, and Ellen. And that's what I'm going to call them, all right? Ed, Gloria, and Ellen.
That's my name.
In our budget introduction, if our budget introduction had been pulled, as they attempted to do today, in Ellen's email, okay? And she could read her email, and she seems to be proud of it. I'd be really embarrassed about what I wrote if I was her. Let her read it. Let me tell you to the public what would happen, okay? If they achieved what they wanted to achieve. We could not make improvements to the town or move forward with an approved budget. We couldn't pave our roads without an approved budget. We couldn't make improvement to our fields, without an approved budget. We couldn't make improvements to our buildings without an approved budget. We can't buy equipment without our approved budget. Our department heads, you have a chief of police standing back there. He can't run his department and know how much money he has without an approved budget. Okay? The only people that are suffering by your games are the residents and the taxpayers. It's an embarrassment. Stop.
Are you done now?
No, I'm not done.
Okay.
And
I'll
these
wait.
lies to accuse me and the mayor of what you accused us of. Okay? I hope the Attorney General does come here. I would love to talk to this Attorney General and sit here publicly.
And we've been trying to get him
Okay?
for months.
Right, let him come here. But for you two, let me quote you. The fact the borough attorney and the mayor and council president kept this a secret is outrageous, unethical, and an investigation shall be underway. The appearance of impropriety is enough to raise concerns, but it is clear that the mayor and council president, instead of correcting their mistakes, tried to cover it up. How dare you make those type of allegations?
Because it's true.
I know it's not true, and you better watch it.
You're out of
because you know
order.
what? You're not going to have the legal coverage on defamation. Let me
You know
tell
what?
right now.
You're out of order.
You know what?
Number one.
Point of order.
You're out of order.
Point of order. Point of order.
I want to
Point
show
of
you
order.
what the
finished.
mayor was referencing originally. This is what a budget workshop document is. And I have to tell you something. I am thanking every department head for the efforts they put into it, for the work they put into it, for the meetings. Some took longer than others, but I thought the majority of and Councilwoman Wu was with me with the public safety. I thought it was a great process. I was very happy with the meetings. I was very happy with the outcome. I think the department heads were. We had meetings of the minds. We had very productive discussions, and it was a process. And it was a process that we should all be proud of. Tonight, we're holding our 2017 municipal budget hearing and adoption. Our 2017 budget appropriations is up $893,655. Areas that have increased in 2017 over 2016 are as follows, and I'm trying to make this as simple for everyone that may have a difficult time in understanding in the budget from one year over the other. And I have to tell you guys, there were hundreds of hours as volunteers that were put into the preparation of this budget. And we do that willingly, but I just want you to understand the amount of time that's put into this. Our, it's called a RUT, R-U-T, Reserve for Uncollected Taxes, is up by $316,000. Our insurance and litigation line item is up by $37,500. Our group insurance is up by $69,800. And our land use board line, we're up by $30,500. Our terminal leave, guys, I can't.
Sorry.
Our terminal leave line item is up by $150,500. Our pension increase is up by $13,413. Our tax appeal line item is up by $47,000. Our accumulated absences line item is up by $49,000. Our capital improvement fund line item is up by $50,000. The capital improvement fund, guys, so that for those of you that don't know what capital improvement fund is, it's if you, any improvements to the town, borough building equipment, fields, that's what a capital improvement line is, and there's an extra $50,000 in that line item this year. That total is $763,413. So that's what we're totaling from 2016 to 17, right off the bat. We also had a loss of court revenues, which was $100,000. On top of that, we have increased our legal line by $100,000 due to the concerns the borough has faced and may face. This year, we have budgeted for any and all tax appeal settlements that we are aware of. This budget has doubled our down payment, as I just said earlier, on our capital improvements so that our council, and this is there's a lot of conversations going on Facebook, and I want to make this clear. Doubled our down payment on capital improvements so that our council can discuss and have a 2-year plan for improvements to our buildings, our parks, and our equipment. We are taking steps to plan for the future within this budget for projects that may cross over multiple years. We have budgeted to enhance programs and started the process for an electronic registration and payment service called Community Pass for all recreation programs and events. We are trying a new method of budgeting for tax appeals and terminal leave payments and trying to only use the power of debt when investing or improving public properties, roadways, infrastructure, or equipment whenever possible. Now, for those of you that don't know where to find the capital line item in the budget, you can turn to page, or sheet, because they're called sheets, 26. And you can see, under appropriated, under capital improvement fund, for 2016, it said $50,000, and for 2017, it says $100,000. And then if you turn to the last page of our budget, which this portion was given out to all council members at the introduction, it's our 3-year plan. It goes into what we'll be doing for the police department, and what I sat with the administrator, and we allocated what we felt the numbers would be for the requested lead asbestos, architect, signboards, outdoor machine, locker room renovation, portable signboard cameras. That was allocated for police. Ladies and gentlemen, that's after sitting with the chief and certain members of his department, and they're sharing their needs of what they need, and we tried to encompass everything that we could into this budget and put it into a plan. DPW, roads with curbs, road signs, bathroom, new bathroom is needed at this building here. Senior center, various improvements, community chairs, submersible camera, DPW various vehicles, asphalt hot box, fuel concrete pad. That's for DPW. Then on the public property, and again, I know there's a lot of conversation going on Facebook, and I don't know why no one knows where to find this in the budget, but it says it right there, public property. Studies, improvements. There's $1 million there. That's for the council to sit and discuss what improvements they would like to make to the buildings and to the fields. We haven't had those conversations yet. But in order to have those conversations and to be able to act on any of those improvements, whether they're buildings or fields, the money has to be put into the budget ahead of time so that you have it there in the case that you want to act. If you don't put the money there, it doesn't matter what discussions we hold, because if there's no money in the budget to make any improvements, you can't make them. So I hope that everyone understands now where to find these items. No one has asked me where to find those items, and that's the report on this. I understand you're looking to get your soundbite in the press again and trying to amend the budget on the floor, and I just ask you, why, after all the numerous attempts of calling, emailing, having a mayor, I don't mean to say this, but we had more than 2 public meetings. We also had the former caucus meetings. We had 2 dedicated workshops on the budget, but then we had numerous caucus meetings where we went over all the budget information.
We had one workshop.
And, you know, we're here to work and to be productive, not to create sound bites for our political campaigns because you're running this year. And that's a disservice to the residents. And that's my report, Mayor, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions from the public.
Thank you for that. You know, and, just along those lines, the workshops are for the public, you know, but the council's always invited and always able to communicate with the finance committee chairperson. It doesn't just have to be in public to get that soundbite for the NorthJersey.com record.
Okay.
It's
Point of
supposed to be a
order.
working,
Okay,
a
can we
working
speak now?
document.
Can we speak?
We're gonna-
Can this
I'd
side
like
of the
to
room
open-
speak now?
I'd like to open to the public.
I'd like to speak. Point of order, Mayor.
That's not...
I've asked you, this is my third time asking.
Would you like to speak? What would you like to speak about?
I'd like to speak.
Sure, speak.
Okay. Thank you. Now I'd like to make a motion. No, I'd like to speak first,
Yeah, well,
because,
tell us about your phone call.
it's not funny. It's really not funny. We're here to discuss budget.
All right,
And you accuse of us of being political.
So
But
what
you-
are your
Oh,
substantive issues?
between you and Carol over there, nothing.
Carol over there? What are your substantive issues on the budget?
You have been very political throughout this whole meeting
Do you
up
have a-
until this point. So let me speak.
All right, what are your
Okay, don't
substantive
interrupt.
issues? Go ahead.
My whole issue with the budget is we have so much money in surplus. Why aren't we using it? We brought this up, Mayor, as much as you like to say that we never brought this up. At the last mayor council meeting, when Ellen abstained, she said part of the reason why she was abstaining was because why can't we use the surplus? She brought that up. You didn't answer her. We had one workshop, okay?
Why don't we spend more money for the field? Why don't we,
There is money in there for the field, I just said it. Stop playing.
So,
There's $1 million there.
yeah, let me
I have it
finish.
back
You know
in
what,
the-
like, okay, so when I'm speaking, it's okay for you to interrupt, and I can't interrupt when you're speaking? That's not fair.
Actually, Ellen and Ned interrupted you, but go ahead. Good.
So, last year, okay, when we did our budget, we assumed $910,000 from the surplus, leaving $157,000 and some change. This year, we're saying that we're using 1.3 out of the 2.2 we're gonna end up in 2017. Why can't we use more of the surplus? Why do we have to increase the taxes? Why can't we give the surplus back to the taxpayers and decrease the tax? Why can't we do that?
All right, you're asking a question?
No, wait, make
So,
I'd like to
Carol,
make a
can
motion,
you just ask a
I'd like
question?
to make a
Do
motion
you want an answer?
to amend the
She asked a question,
2017
Mr.
budget.
Garza.
I had the floor, Mayor, don't
But
interrupt.
you asked the question.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the 2017 budget with the following changes to give the taxpayers tax decrease with no changes to the services. One, out of 2.2 million in surplus, instead of realizing 1.3 million and leaving 914,000, realize additional $300,000 and increase the amount of revenue from construction-related line items by 25,000 from 550,000 to 575,000.
I second that motion, that's a good motion. We love to give the taxpayers their money back.
Did you rerun the budget?
Mayor, motion.
Yes.
All right.
Well, there's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So you want to do it.
So,
Motion to discuss.
motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss, I need a second.
You can't have a motion once there's a
There's a
motion.
motion on the, you've taught me that, Carol,
I can
so
make
there's
a
a
motion
motion,
to
and this is
discuss.
exactly what you did at the introduction.
No, it's not true.
There was no motion made at the introduction.
There was no
I have to do
motion.
that
I
now.
made a
There
motion.
is a motion now.
And a second.
Okay. I just need to say for the purposes of amendment, there is a specific statute about amendments at 40A:4-9. For example, we have an amendment on the agenda already. It's Resolution 17-85 to amend the budget as currently introduced. The law doesn't allow us to amend except in restricted circumstances. So we today, because of the change for the amendment we do have, we got approval from LGS to put that amendment on the agenda for adoption. Your amendment has not been passed through the state for approval, and that presents a problem in adding it now. It doesn't mean we cannot consider it and add it later, because you can always add, you can always amend the budget after adoption as well. It presents a problem for purposes of notice and for purposes of whether or not your amendments change appropriations in excess of 1% of total appropriation, increase or decrease any appropriation by more than 10%, or increase amount raised by taxes by more than 5%. Those are the type of amendments that cannot be willy-nilly addressed in the budget process as we stand now.
What is the notice provision?
The notice provision for amendments that have not been approved by the state is a requirement for notice at least 3 full days before the amendment can be introduced.
Okay,
So that's on
we
the
received the amendment
statute.
today at 3 o'clock or 4:40 exactly?
Yes.
I got it 5:18.
The state has
Okay.
approved that, and that's one of the things that
But it was never publicly notified,
the
right?
state, when the state approves, there doesn't have to be public notice.
I see.
It can be adopted as part of the budget. That's under 40A:4-9. Amendments by the director can be made without notice. They're approved already. They've seen it. They've seen the actual resolution that you have on the agenda. It is not one that concerns those 3 areas that I just read. Now, I'm not saying your motion fits into those 3 areas either. I'm just saying you do not have prior approval by the director of the Division of Local Government Services, so,
You don't have
rather,
to.
director. So it presents a problem.
There's one additional problem. The numbers that
I can't get
Councilwoman
approval
O...
now.
Right, but the numbers that Councilwoman O used in her narrative
Yes.
don't work with the amendment that you got approved today. They're all. Councilwoman Laurel?
I have a different question for our administrator and for Mr. Garbarini. Councilman O was referencing that we have 2.2 million in surplus, but it was my understanding that we were not allowed
Because of
to utilize that surplus, and we were only on, that it was recommended that we not go past a certain number.
I believe the number was
Excuse me, you're
1.5.
interrupted, you just asked me not to interrupt you, so.
Well, you interrupt.
Well, Mr. Garber needs to check.
Very
I
good.
believe he had mentioned 1.55 at the
It
workshop.
was a maximum that you said that you recommended not to go near that max, you know, up to that max. In fact, I remember, the conversation at that meeting that, I thought it was 1.5 was the max, but not to, recommended not to go.
The cash surplus that's available is $1,525,780.96.
Right, but your recommendation was not to go over, I mean, I have to go pull the tape, I don't have the audio tape of what you said, but you gave a recommendation of not to go. In fact, there were members of the public, right, but the conversation.
But not to spend more than that.
No.
I was asking.
You gave a recommendation of what to spend, it was not 1.5, it absolutely was not.
Taking into account some of the things that made up surplus this year, specifically at that workshop, the CFO had mentioned deferred taxes and such, and those items we like to be very conservative with, and that's probably what I was referring to at the time. Also, to taking more of a multi-year view rather than a single-year view.
Right.
Of utilizing maybe some of that next year as well. That's what I recall from the...
Right, and I remember the conversation being that we should be conservative and not go to the max of 1.5. And that advice was taken seriously, and that advice was listened to. So the 2.2 million was never on the table as anything that could even be thought of. So,
Any question?
Yeah.
I think some of the logic is that last year, we left, as Lori said, $150-some odd thousand in surplus. So what, even though we want to be prudent and fiscally responsible, we also don't, I don't believe we should hold on to any extra dollars of the taxpayers that we necessarily have to. And if we do what was said there, still leaving 600,000 plus in surplus, I think that's more than, I think we're irresponsible if we don't do that. So that's my feeling. Now, for some reason, last year it was okay to leave 150,000 in and get $25 back to the taxpayers, but this year it's not okay to leave
Right, but-
600+ thousand in and give something back to the taxpayers.
Point is well taken. Last year, just for the record, we started off at a very low number that was left over when we came in. Yes, Councilwoman.
yeah, I just want to respond to Councilman Aversa. Mr. Garbini, can you just tell the audience exactly what the surplus is we're leaving and how much, what we're using and how much we'll be leaving in with this budget?
The total surplus available, both cash surplus and non-cash surplus, is $2,214,027. The current surplus anticipated in the 2017 budget is $1,300,000. The surplus balance remaining is $914,027. That's from sheet 35.
Right, but you said not to utilize, finish the...
Well, he's recommending.
I just want to, look.
That's what's available. Again, if we're having a conversation about, back to the deferred school tax, there's basically $730,000 increase in the school taxes that are in that calculation, and that amount is unusually high from one year to the next, and we normally don't advise to use that in cash surplus. It is available. Obviously, the decision is yours.
But we're also,
So that, out of that 900, the 700,000
Is the increase, it's actually $730,107.
we're also looking to lower our borrowing costs by getting a better bond rating as a
And
borough.
Mayor, there's one other thing that we
So
became aware
that's
of,
why we leave
Councilman
it in.
Aversa. Councilman Aversa, what we became aware of this year, and it was with the chief of police for Sacramento, Councilman Wu, and we did not know that this last year, Councilman Aversa. I don't know, I would like to think you were
We
aware
didn't
of
know
it.
there
You bring
was,
it
we didn't know there
to
was
our
$150,000 left in surplus?
No, no.
if you let me finish, the police contract that you negotiated with Councilwoman O allows, officers to, to cash out all their bank time for the purpose of the public so they can understand. What we found out was Englewood Cliffs did not have a police contract until, I think, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the first police contract was 2008, starting 2009, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 to 13 was your first contract, and then you went from 14, and I think you expire in 18. So what happens with officers when they retire, they have bank time. And there were handshake deals in the past of how that was handled. Then when we had our first contract, the bank time was determined that whatever was on the books, 10% could be paid down either by the officer requesting it or by the choice of the borough to want to pay that debt down by 10%. Before the contract came into place, and Chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, officers, when they had compensation time, were not allowed to, after that year passed, allowed to cash that time out at all. That was a past practice, and that was a handshake deal. I do have written confirmation of that, Chief. You look puzzled, but
Are you asking me?
I'm stating the facts as I know them, yeah.
You're asking me, I'll answer you.
Okay, thank you. So that the first contract then allowed the change that either the officer or the borough could pay that debt down, whatever was on the books, by 10%. And that's a manageable amount. 10% is a manageable amount. What happened in the contract that Councilman Versa negotiated with Councilwoman O and the prior administration is they took that clause out. You know, Moore had a 10% pay down clause, which what they put in was you can cash the whole thing out. Whatever is owed on compensation time on the books, everybody wants to put it in, cash it out, they can cash it out. That's a liability that is an unknown liability. Now, not saying who's going to cash out, who's not. It's their right to cash out, it's their money, but it's very hard to budget and plan a budget when there's an unknown liability and we don't know how it's going to be utilized. That being said, we have to not use, I don't make things up as I go along, I heard that. Okay? Put the Oprahs in, I'm sure they'll be there tomorrow. I'm stating a fact. So you have to plan accordingly, and that's why we were a little more prudent this year, and I would not recommend anything other than that. I discussed it with the administrator, brought it to her attention, and, you know, if you know about something like that, then you have to, you know.
Would you like to add anything?
Other than we increase the uncompensated leave line item
Right.
in response to that.
Yeah, so it's a cushion that we need because of the way the contract works. You know, I wasn't here for the contract, and that's what we have, so we have to
Mayor, any
honor it.
comment on the contract, now that you brought it up? Because it's told that, you know, I don't know what part Carol's talking about, the part that,
You don't know what she's talking about?
I don't think she knows.
Well, hold on a second. Then let her explain it to you.
She did, I understood.
You do understand
So
it.
let me explain the rest of it that apparently she's leaving out. Because the part of the contract that was favorable, and one of the parts that we had discussed with the chief as far as overtime went, was we could not predict who would cash in their overtime and when. That was one of the problems we had. So when it came time for the chief to say, you know, let's allow for overtime, some of the guys had accumulated quite a bit of overtime at that point. So the objective was to not hurt the employees and let them gather their time. Whoever had accumulated it could keep it, and as you said, cash it in. But moving forward, as of, I believe it was 2014, January 1st, any overtime that was accrued could not be extended or brought forward. Now, you're leaving out a very important part. One of the bad parts of the previous thing was, as they banked their overtime, when they took the overtime is when they were compensated for it, at that hourly rate. They could have, incurred overtime as a patrolman the first year at, $20 an hour, and then cashed it in when they retired as a captain at $100 an hour. It was the same hour of overtime, but our compensation was much different. So it became very difficult for us to budget overtime. So by not hurting the officers moving forward, whoever had accumulated it, had accumulated it. That was just my feeling. However, moving forward, anybody who accumulated overtime in that year could now either collect it in comp time or in pay. But I believe that November 15th is the date, the deadline, that they have to make that choice. And either, if they don't take the, comp time by November 15th, the borough pays them their overtime.
Right, but we're doing a budget in April.
I understand.
We won't know until November, so we need to have a cushion in order to honor the contract that we have. I mean,
And that's a
the contract-
flexible number.
Right, the contract is a given, and we don't know until November 15th.
I'm not arguing that line item, Mayor. All I'm saying is that there are other areas, and we stated them already, that we can make up the difference so that there's no increase to the taxpayers and no loss of services at all, zero. So I don't understand why it's such a big thing.
Well,
I make a motion to adjourn the motion. Carrie?
You know what, I will withdraw my motion, so...
So that we can have the discussion. We don't need to pass the budget tonight.
No,
It would
we
be
don't have
wonderful
to.
if we could, but I think in light of what we have learned now, and with the Borough Council telling us that you can't really just amend it right now, I don't see why we can't.
No, we do need a budget, and I'm not persuaded by anything you're saying.
Okay, that's
The budget that we have here honors all our contractual obligations and our contingent contractual obligations, which we don't know about right now until November, and it also helps us bolster our credit rating for future potential borrowings, to lower our cost of borrowing. And I think the Finance Committee Chair did a great job, and I appreciate all your hard work on this. Let's open to the public.
I would like to
most of
see it, please.
The one point that we're not listening to what Mr. Barberini is saying, out of that 900,000 change, there's 700,000 and change that's coming from the, is it school?
Yeah.
School,
The first one.
deferred school tax, and, it's an unknown number, and to me, I'm not comfortable making it that dangerously low. This has nothing to do with, I know the game, you want to say we want to raise taxes, this has nothing to do about that. You're running for office this year as a political...
You know what, that's the third time that you said that. This is a budget
I'm
meeting.
gonna keep...
So, can I respond to your comment?
For the benefit of the
I have the
public,
floor.
can you explain the deferred school tax for the
I'll let
benefit of the
Paul,
public?
explain.
Paul, would you
No,
explain that?
deferred school
Yeah.
tax, but Mayor, I have the floor. If they truly, listen, if this is truly something that they were thinking of, I just can't for the life of me understand why they didn't bring it up.
No, we did bring it up. You
No,
refused to
didn't.
hear us.
No,
You refused to
didn't.
hear us, and we understand the deferred tax, we do it every year. So if you subtract the 914,000 to 734,000, you still have 180. Last year, we left 57,000? That's still more than what we
I'm
left
gonna
last
pull
year.
that audio tape from when the auditor was speaking, and I thought I remember him saying we should be in the 1-2 range.
What's the deferred tax amount? What's the deferred tax
That's what I
amount?
remember being said at that meeting.
Can we talk about the school taxes? Can you explain that to the public, what the deferred school tax is?
Basically, the school budget is on a fiscal year, June 30th, and the municipality is on a calendar year, December 31st. The municipality has the job, obligation, whatever, to collect the school taxes for the school. So, because there's an overlap in the calendar from July 1st through June 30th, which is the school year, we're collecting half of the taxes for one year and half for the other. So the objection at the workshop, the CFO was somewhat concerned because that increase, which does happen every year, because school taxes tend to go up every year, was extraordinarily large last year compared to other years, in proportion with the school taxes as a whole. Obviously, the decision on how much surplus to use and not to use has to come from the governing body. However, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. And this has changed from year to year. The rating agencies, which rate your municipal bonds, have, in the last 3 or 4 deals that I worked on, focused more and more on surplus. You also have your cash surplus number to be concerned with, which I mentioned before, which is $1.5 million. And this is seriously a look to next year's budget as well, to make sure that there is adequate surplus for next year's budget to use. You are utilizing more than $1 million in surplus, so we never really know what we're going to generate from year to year. We had an excellent 2016 where we did generate more surplus than any of us anticipated. During the workshop, I had mentioned that, the 16 year was a good year. It was actually, probably a better word would have been a great year. You really never know how your tax collections are going to come in. You never know how your expenditures are going to go. There's so many unknowns with tax appeals, legal expenses, et cetera, et cetera. So, again, it's your decision, but there's this balance between how much surplus to use, how much you're allowed to use, how much you can leave. I believe that the CFO and I had expressed our concerns at that workshop, and I know that's what you're referring to. So we were comfortable in the range of anywhere between $1 million and $1.5 million, which is the most you could use anyhow. And
So I have a question.
And we're using what?
So is it your recommendation then to keep the surplus as it's in this budget?
as I said, it's a governing body decision. I'm your independent auditor. I'm not here to, this is not my budget. I'm certifying that the budget adds properly, that the budget meets state statutes and such. I don't have a firm number. Last year you used 910, this year $1.3 million. I guess that would be a good parameter for doing that,
And I guess my other question is, I know that 2016 was a great year, but LG is coming, or they're breaking ground already. So isn't it logical to say that there'll be more money in permits and everything else, in construction codes coming in for 2017 and 2018?
I think that's dependent on when they pull the permits.
We
reviewed that, we were concerned with when they might pull the permits, and if we overstated that revenue in that line item, it could leave us short. So there was, the construction officials supposed to meet with their representatives, but we don't have a solid answer as to when they pull both of those permits. So if we overstated that, we could wind up short.
Mayor, can I respond? Catherine and I have to really thank her for jumping in like she did and really hitting all the areas with me. We looked and we checked and we really tried to use as much, and look, I understand what you guys want to do, and it's great that if we can make as less of a burden to the taxpayers, we all would want to do that. But like the auditor just said, we have to have a balance that we feel comfortable with. What if, God forbid, there's some emergency that the police department needs, or there's some emergency from any other building or road or infrastructure that's an unanticipated one? I mean, we don't want to cut ourselves so close. The max number is 1.5 million. We're at 1.3. We have to really balance what we're comfortable with and be prudent. And my opinion, as finance chair, not wipe it all out to the max. If something happens, where's our buffer? We don't have one. I personally am not recommending to take that chance. I'm not comfortable with it. Obviously, it comes down to a vote. I have to worry about bond rating, cushion, plan for some sort of emergency that we don't know of, right? So there's got to be a balance, and that's what my fear is, that, yes, I'd love to give as much back that we can, but like the auditor said, last year we used $910,000 in surplus. This year we're using $1.3 million of surplus, and we just want to make sure that we have enough of a cushion in case at the end of the year there is something that was not anticipated, and we have to have something to fall back on. That's what my fear is.
I think it's important for the public to speak. I have a motion to open to the
I
public.
have a question.
I would like to
So
speak.
moved, there's a motion. Anybody else? Second?
Point of order,
All in favor?
not nay. I would
There
like,
was a motion on the floor,
You withdrew it.
but,
You withdrew it.
excuse me,
Does anyone?
no, point of order.
You withdrew your
No,
motion.
I
I think the
said,
audience wants to see what I wrote.
She didn't withdraw it.
I said I could withdraw my motion, but I'd like to make another motion to carry this over to the next meeting so
Right.
that we could have another workshop where we could sit down and see if we could close the gap. Okay, we
waited
talked
for
about,
you.
excuse me,
You can
I'm
make a motion,
speaking.
go ahead.
I'm
We waited
speaking.
for you for 4 months to deal with this.
You know
And
what,
you're doing it on an
Mayor?
item of
Mayor,
adoption.
excuse me.
Go ahead, make your motion.
You know what?
What motion
If
would
I
you like to
have
make?
questions, if I have concerns, I have my right to speak.
That's fine, make your motion.
You don't have to put me down every time I try to speak.
That's fine, make your
Okay?
motion.
And so I am going to make a motion
motion.
that we carry this to the next
Are
meeting.
you going to make a motion, or are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion
Then
right
make-
now.
then
If
make
you
your
stop
motion.
interrupting me, maybe I could finish my motion.
But-
I'm making a motion to carry this to our next meeting, so
Carry
that
what till the next meeting, please?
Yes.
the adoption, so that we can have another workshop where we could sit down and see if we could close the gap.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there a vote, please? Have a roll.
Why wouldn't we vote yes for that? That's makes perfect.
Could I have a vote, roll call, please?
Councilperson Zaversa?
Yes, I think that's a very prudent thing, and
Oh,
I
come
see
on.
no reason to rush
Okay.
it. What's-
All right, you don't speak during the vote.
Yes, yes.
E. Park?
I have also asked for multiple workshops, and if you saw the introduction
Council.
video, that's what I asked for, and I was required to vote.
Not true, go ahead.
Yes, look at the video. So I also say yes. All right.
Got a yes, all right?
Okay.
Councilwoman O?
Just as a reminder, we don't speak during the vote. It's either a yes or a no.
Yes.
Councilwoman O? Thank you. McMorro?
No.
M. Park? Wu?
No.
Mayor, it's 3 yeses and 3 nos.
No. Have a motion to open to the public, please.
No, point of order.
Is there a second?
Point of order. I don't understand why you won't let me speak, Mayor. What are you so
We have
afraid of?
to- I'm not afraid of anything, we have to
So
open
let
to the
me
public.
speak then.
No, we're following the agenda.
No, I will speak now.
Is
It's
there a
my
second?
turn.
Mark Park seconded.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Okay.
And what did you second?
So let's have a roll call to open to the public.
Who made the motion?
He doesn't want me to speak.
Bring it up under new business.
Councilman Wu, seconded.
I want to hear from the public.
All in favor?
Nay.
Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor Kaplan.
I assume those are 3 no's to 3 yeses.
No, I said a yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Don't assume.
I heard no, yeah.
Maybe that's what you wanted to hear.
All right, well, thank you. So if there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on the budget only, please
No.
step forward. Oh, so all matters?
No, this is an open to the public on all matters.
On all matters, okay.
That's, we still will have a public hearing on the budget itself.
So this is not budget questions. This
Correct.
is just...
Anything.
Questions or this budget?
This is, you can ask budget questions
Oh, I
here,
thought they,
too.
they...
It's anything, anything you
They
want.
could ask.
Fine.
Okay.
Wait,
I don't know, I thought it was...
Attorney.
I would just like to clarify with the auditors, the deferred school tax.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your name, please? Name and...
Sorry.
Service of our Wellington College.
Thank you.
The deferred school taxes, we have that every year. I realize it went up this year. When did it go up from the prior year? Was it 300 that we had deferred, and now it's 700, or 400, and now it's 700? And have we not used it in the past?
Okay, well, let me just, can any of the council members answer that question?
Or you want to ask, you want to get the professional director?
Okay, I want to ask, whoever can answer the question. I haven't been able to get tax appeal
All right,
answer,
let's
so
move along. Paul, can you
I
answer that?
assume that that's why he's here.
The net deferred school taxes I said before is, the increase was $730,107.
That was the increase over the prior year?
That's the total.
Yes.
So what was the prior year? Well, the point I'm trying to make is that there was deferred taxes in the prior year also. We still brought it down to 150,000. So I think when looking at the surplus, you don't have to say you have to have that whole 700,000 put aside. So I'm saying that might be an area where you could actually take some of that surplus and put it back into the budget to bring the taxes to a flat or maybe even a decrease.
Thank you.
The other question I have, and this has been my question for quite some time now, going into last year's budget, was the $295,000. I'd like to understand where the $295,000 tax appeal was in last year's budget. And then I want to clearly understand where all the tax appeals for 2007 are in this budget.
17.
2007.
Would you like to answer that?
Well, right before the meeting, I gave Mr. Barry the page numbers of where the...
Right before the meeting, you
Okay.
sent me a piece of paper that had a dollar amount on it and said you couldn't give me the paper. It said 56,000 and change.
Ms. Savard, do you have that paper?
No,
No, she's not allowed to
it
give it to me.
has
This is-
attorney-client privilege.
No, I'm
Do you
sorry.
understand why I feel that this, like, I feel like a detective here, like I have to try to dig through papers and numbers to come up with my answers, and it's not fair, okay? So, right now, I would like to ask the auditor,
All right, fine.
and I
Mr.
don't want to be
Garbarino?
accused of harassing him, I
Mr.
just would like an answer. He's a professional. You've said many times that you've referred to professionals to help
Fine.
you with
Mr.
this.
Garbarino, can you answer the question?
So to the amount of money that we are budgeting in this year's budget for tax appeals, in 2016, we budgeted directly $100,000. This year, we're budgeting $147,939, which the CFO certified to the best of his knowledge as of today, that is the amount of the tax appeals. We also budgeted $816,877 in the reserve for uncollected taxes, which would also be utilized for any tax appeals. The way the borough treats tax appeals is consistent with all the municipalities in the state of New Jersey. The other tax appeal area that would come up during the year, we would address at that point. But right now, the $816,877 and the $147,939 are the two tax appeal areas.
Well, what is the difference between the tax appeal line and the uncollected tax reserve? Like, where are the credits? Now, my understanding is that the tax appeal line is the actual checks that are going to be issued, or probably would have been issued already because it had to happen by April 15th. So that would be your 147. So then you have the other 816,000, which we know that the town has entered into resolutions to give back tax credits to the taxpayers. So what is that dollar amount, and where is it? Is it part of, there's always been 500,000 on that line item for uncollected tax, so now it's 816. So is the difference the tax credits?
Catherine, could you answer that,
Yeah.
please?
We had to, the CFO had to send down to the state, any obligations that we may have out there. So in order to address the credits, he thought it was prudent to put that in the reserve for uncollected taxes. Because essentially it is an uncollected tax because it's being credited against their tax bill. So he increased the what? Reserve for uncollected taxes, the amount that he's assuming is going to come off in credits. So essentially, I think statutorily, we had to increase, we have to have the right, I think you said at 697, and the CFO was comfortable at roughly 816, given the credits.
Okay, but the credits that we agreed to, what I'm trying to understand is we were going to settle these tax appeals by giving tax credits and having it go out, so that we wouldn't get hit with writing checks in that particular year. So how much have we actually given back this year in tax appeals, whether it's a credit or a check? It's still the same. It's coming out of this year's budget. It's being expensed.
Right, right. Anne Marie, all of these are not finalized on Chris's papers, so I
Right.
don't think I can answer.
Yeah, I guess, what I'd like the governing body to understand is that the CFO put a lot of time and effort into this, and if he only knew about 147,939, it's like an exact number, the difference between roughly $500,000 and the 816,877, it would be the cushion to the credit, so let's call that 300,000 and change.
Right.
Doesn't mean any or all of that'll be used, it just means that until he has a judgment in his hand, which is a court decree that the municipality owes the money back to the taxpayer, and as long as if there was a negotiated settlement where maybe the appeal would be credit, or we would owe no interest on that credit, and that would be a negotiated settlement. So again, the CFO felt comfortable putting the cushion there.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't mean to speak for the CFO, but
Thank
we've
you.
had many conversations with him.
I'm going to go back to this again, okay? I got copies of the resolutions. These taxes were appealed and settled. So we know a big group of taxpayers in this town are getting a credit this year. How can you say that you can't tell me what that number is? Like, I'm trying to understand why, if that number is, let's say it's the 316 above the 500. Let's say it's not all settled, but you think maybe it will get settled, so you're putting that extra money in there, okay? That makes the settlements $500,000.
No, 816 plus the
No,
147.
the 147 plus the 316, 460 something, makes it close to $500,000.
No, it's 816 then.
It's not
316.
It's not
It's
8.
316
She's
higher
saying
than
they-
that.
816 is the RUT amount in our budget.
That's right.
The RUT covers anything that's uncollected taxes. So if we have a 97% collection rate, we have to make certain that we are budgeting for anyone that's incapable of paying their taxes.
Okay.
And we have the CFO has outlined specific block and lots which total $316,876.60, which is exactly rounded off by 40 cents, the amount.
I apologize, I thought the 3 was an 8, and I'm looking, it's very tiny, so I thought the 3 was an 8. So it's 3.
No, in the budget, it's an 8.
Right.
In the budget, it's an 8.
Right.
Right.
Right, but the
They've
question,
But the
answer
difference
question.
between last year's amount and this year's amount, he's assuming 316 in credits.
Yeah.
And all of these don't have judgments.
Okay, well, I don't have what you're looking at. I was given a glance of it. Now,
Well-
mind you, I've been asking for 4 months for these numbers, okay? The point I'm trying to make here is that we were supposed to give back the taxpayers, we were going to do a credit, and you weren't gonna write a check, and you weren't gonna bond, so that we wouldn't feel the effects in one particular year. But what we've done here is we still have close to $500,000 in tax appeals that are being paid out in 2017. So does it really make more sense to have done it that way versus bonding it at a 3-year minimum payout versus in 2017? It's something to think about.
But then you're incurring debt, right?
But that's what you said.
Well, you're incurring debt and
You
also...
were going to do tax credits so that it would go toward the future, okay? But it's not. It's in 2017, and it's close to $500,000.
Well, it's a more cost-effective way of doing it, because you're not incurring debt and interest, and you're also not incurring transaction costs of floating a bond and all the professional expenses that go with that.
What we were
So-
told is that we were going to not write out checks
We're
to
not.
these taxpayers.
We're not writing checks.
Whether you
The
write
the
a
audit
check or
rules,
give them a credit in the same year.
Mr. Garverini, the audit rules require us to disclose the credit side as well, right? That was my understanding.
Well, of course, I mean, a
Right.
credit is favorable in a lot of cases because the way that I don't want to speak for the attorneys that deal with property tax settlements, but often they negotiate settlements without interest, which would be owed, and one of in the negotiations, the taxpayers prefer the credit that way, and a lot of municipalities prefer credits that way. Again, it's usually up to the CFO who's actually in the trenches doing the handling of the cash and such, just to make sure that for cash flow purposes, that there's enough money to pay that back.
Mrs. Sabari, have your questions been answered?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. I still
I
feel
I
like
don't
I'm being
think...
bamboozled.
You're not being
because-
bamboozled. We have professionals dealing with this.
Okay, so
I just
I'm gonna go
ask
back-
you to yield the
I'm
floor.
gonna go back to the $295,000 then. Where was that in last year's budget?
Mr. Garverini?
As I said before, the borough's treatment of tax appeals is consistent with the way municipalities handle tax appeals. They handle tax appeals through appropriations, through operations, and through emergencies. I know there was
What line
a
was it?
case of an emergency last year. The emergency was approved by the Foreign Council. The emergency was approved by the Division of Local Government Services. So it's a valid emergency, and one of the requirements of the emergency is that it gets raised in this year's budget, which we're doing.
So we have, just to put things in perspective...
Excuse me,
we
was
have
it approved? Was it approved?
Absolutely.
Yes, you voted for it.
Positively.
We have a $17 million
Actually,
budget.
we have the
Okay,
two caps,
let's put
correct?
things in perspective. We have a $17 million budget. The 295 keeps coming up. I know you keep asking about it. And Mr. Garverini has explained it, Chris Battaglia has explained it,
No, actually,
Carol
this
has
is the
explained
first
it.
we spoke on
We've passed a resolution to pay it. I just ask you
You're
to
not letting
please...
me speak.
Well, I did, but you've been up there for
Because-
15 minutes.
Because I have to stand up here and explain to you how it works.
And I'm asking you to yield the floor,
So-
because you keep asking the same question. It's been answered, and with all due respect, ma'am, we have a $17 million budget, and you're dwelling on
Not supposed
$295,000.
to be political, but yet, for some reason, in 2017, you're paying out $500,000 in tax appeals that you said you were going to spread out over time. Why is
No,
that?
you're confusing the cash basis versus the accrual, which we're required to do.
No,
okay?
in this budget, you're going to be paying out $500,000.
Right, well, that's the result of bad
Okay.
management before we came in. I'm
So
still dealing with all that.
that's why.
I'm still dealing with that garbage, okay?
You know what?
Don't sit up here because...
Again, you're being political.
No, I'm not. I inherited that, and I'm dealing with it, and you don't want to hear that.
I
That's
found
it.
that...
Is there
you
anyone
don't
else
get
from the
your
public?
questions answered. So next year, I'm going to make myself independent, because I don't want to be a Democrat or a Republican, and I'm going to run for council.
Thank you. I wish you...
Because that's the only way you can get an answer.
I wish you well.
You guys are something else.
Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Yes.
Ridiculous. Don't know how to do budget. Everybody says they know, but nobody even knows what I'm talking about.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council member.
Good evening, sir.
Barry Miss, 1 Sanford Drive. Got a few questions. Some of it may betray my ignorance of some of municipal financing, but bear with some of the questions. First of all, the surplus itself, seems extraordinarily large, about more than 18% of last year's budget. Seems to me you only get a surplus because you've got unanticipated revenues or you over-allocated for expenses in the previous year. Do you know what was such a large surplus in 2016?
We would defer to Mr. Garbarino or the councilwoman in charge.
I know the deferred school tax was a number that came up, and that's connected to, correct me if I'm wrong, the amount of increase that the school board collected. So that affects the number, so depending on what their increase is, that's how that goes up or down, and it's not something that you can
If
ever...
we take that out, it's still probably about 12%
If you
surplus
take-
from
right, if you
last year's
take-
budget.
if
Hold
you-
on a second.
that's fine.
Is Mr. Garbarino's 12%? And again, I don't know, maybe it's normal. It seems to me that's a pretty large percentage to have a surplus in a budget of this size. And we're not talking about $100 million budget here. Mr. Garbarino?
Well, what I was going to do is explain how you arrived at your surplus. So we received miscellaneous revenues anticipated that exceeded the budget by $436,000. We also had some unexpended balances of budget appropriations of $32,985. We had miscellaneous revenues not anticipated of $54,000, and we had unexpended balances of prior year appropriation reserves of $477,000. Those are all positive contributors to surplus. We also had other items that are non-cash items, which had to do with interfunds being returned, statutory excess in the animal license fund, cancelled trust reserves, and the net deferred school tax, which is not cash surplus. Some of the things that we were short in were about $38,709.68. It was a deficit in delinquent tax collections and some bank fees and some prior year expenses. So the surplus, again, on a positive nature, was created through those various items. It's not one in particular thing.
And would a surplus of that size for this size budget be normal?
I don't know what specifically, you'd like me to say, other than that the range that we gave as advisable between the CFO, myself, state statutes, we advised a range between 900 and $1.3 million. We're using $1.3 million. By law, you were allowed to go to $1,525,000. That was that other number I mentioned. But there are other revenues that
that's not my question.
we don't really, have not gone to the
Well,
state
his
statute.
question, if I may, his question is the amount of surplus, the extra surplus we have this year, is that normal for a budget of our size? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm assuming
He
it's
just wants to know,
more than one
our
municipality.
budget,
Do you normally
our
see
surplus
that?
went up, so is that normal?
I'm seeing it more and more. Again, there was a trend to use more and more surplus back around 6-7 years ago. The rating agencies have changed their view of New Jersey municipalities when we go for a bond rating on debt, whether it's notes or bonds. I probably have done 5 or 6 bond deals in the last 4 or 5 months, and the number one focus of the rating agencies now, that's S&P and Moody's, is surplus, how much surplus the municipality has. It's a moving target. Not all municipalities have the option. You're very fortunate here that we're even having this conversation.
So my goal is to improve our bond rating, and, given what I've seen in town, there are things that come up and contingencies that I want to make sure that we have a cushion to deal with, Mr. Misk, and that's why it's where it is.
Maybe then I should address to the mayor and council. I mean, do you think having a surplus of somewhere between 12 and 18% on our budget is where you want to be? Seems like an extraordinary amount for a budget of this size.
It's conservative and prudent. As I said, I'm trying to improve our bond rating, so the cost of borrowing goes down for any projects we do in the future. And also, you know, the last 13 months, 14 months of being mayor, I've seen things arise in this town that require money to deal with, that are unexpected, and I don't control those.
I think Mr. Nisbet's a valid point, and I think leaving $600,000 as opposed to $900,000 is still being prudent, fiscally responsible, and keeping a zero tax increase while maintaining services. I think we kind of could all be happy with that.
Another thought that I'll get to in a moment, but I have some other questions on sheet 10. Can you explain, I'm not sure what that 400,000 is, the general capital fund balance?
Thank you.
That's, you want me to enter?
Yes, sir.
That's the capital surplus.
And is that getting transferred to the general fund for
Yes.
2017?
It's to offset the taxes.
And then we're putting 100 into the general fund after we've taken 400 out of the general fund.
No, that's a different capital.
It's a different capital fund?
The 100,000 is, it's down payment funding. You have to fund a dedicated line item in order to do capital improvements in municipalities required by law. So if the governing body adopts capital improvement ordinances and wants to go out for debt form, you must have a minimum of 5% down of the overall investment.
So it's not the same fund we're taking 400 out of, that you're putting 100 into?
Essentially, it is, but you have to have an appropriation for the 5% of your capital improvement
And
plan
use
in that
funds
line
that are
item.
already in place.
You could, but you'd still have to put the money in that line item.
Okay.
You have to have an appropriation to spend the funds. You can't charge
It
against
has to
the
be an
surplus.
appropriation from that budget year? Wasn't there an
Yeah.
appropriation in 2016 for that, some of that 400 that we're taking out of the capital surplus?
I can't speak of 2016, but I can speak of 2017.
And there is a difference between, just so everyone understands, there's a difference between capital improvement fund and capital surplus. They're almost like two buckets. The capital improvement fund is specifically for down payments of capital ordinances.
And what is the surplus fund for? What is the surplus fund for?
The surplus is the funded balances of unused, stale capital ordinances from prior years that was canceled, and then that returns to capital surplus.
On sheet 27, we have debt service of 2.3 million and change. Again, that looks to be about 15% of our budget. I guess I'm asking the council, with the size of our budget, to be a reasonable amount of debt service. And what is the total debt that we're paying that debt service on? Does anybody know that number?
No, I don't have to.
Mrs. Barberini, can you answer?
The debt of the borough is made up of permanent debt of $13,715,000. It's made up of notes, which is temporary debt of $4.844,745. Then there is debt that has been authorized by the governing body of this governing body and prior governing bodies of $4,781,464.16. Those are the three categories of debt. In New Jersey, we consider debt authorized as debt, even though it's not issued and outstanding.
Having 15% of our budget or so dedicated to debt service, is that a reasonable amount? I mean, is that in line with other municipalities, or is that more than most, less than most?
The overall debt is calculated on a form called the annual debt statement. The limit in all municipalities is 3.5%, and Angelo Cliff's number is far below that.
The $1 million that's been allocated for public properties, Nick Morrow, I think you talked about it, we talk about improvements to the fields and things of that nature. Is it council's intention to fund the renovation of the fields completely with cash on hand, with tax revenue, or with the bond?
That is bonding, that would be bonding, sorry, that would be bonding. What I referenced, which is the difference that you were asking about the capital, improvement fund, right?
100,000.
Right. We put extra money in there. My recommendation was to put extra money in that line item because there are numerous projects that the borough is looking at presently. No one has voted on that yet, and that's for this council to vote on. But as I explained to the public, if you are anticipating or thinking or talking about or discussing, you have to have the money in the budget, otherwise you can't do any of these projects. So, if I may finish, it's called planning ahead, whatever the project is, and that's for this council to decide by a vote what projects they're going to decide to do, but the money needs to be in the budget, and the money is in the budget.
My question is, the sheet 33B, capital budget, you have dedicated $1 million to public property. That's not
That's the
expenditure
capital
from this year's budget. That's
Yeah,
correct.
that's the capital improvement fund.
I guess, forgive me, I'm just maybe not understanding. That's not money that's coming out of this year's revenue.
Well, it's a down payment, as the
$1
administrator...
million is the down payment.
Well, $50,000 equals whatever it is. That's what it equals.
So
The
it's
down
not your
payment.
intention to pay for any improvements with cash on hand?
No,
Okay.
sorry, it's a down payment. Yeah, I said that before.
I guess my question is, the bottom line looks like an increase from last year's budget of approximately $1.2 million, $1.3 million. It seems to be a pretty drastic change in philosophy.
In spending or in what?
The total budget. Last year was 16,
I have 893, look.
Those were the numbers that Councilwoman Ms. Morrow reviewed earlier.
893 is the number, is it not? The appropriations number over, Catherine and I, think we went over that.
It was 893, 653.
893, 653 over last year.
general appropriations on sheet 29, 17,100,000 and change. In 2016, it was 15,913,000 and change.
I think
Difference
you
of
have
about
to,
$1.2 million expended.
you have to look at sheet 3A, from my understanding. $16,208,604.92.
This is the user-friendly version, I guess.
Oh, I don't have that, I got the old bit. 16,208,604.92.
The total expenditure for this year is 16 million?
No, last year.
Last year, 16, so, okay, and this year is 17,
17.
so it's approximately $1 million.
It's 893, whatever the exact number is.
893, 653.
In any event, it seems to be a drastic change in philosophy from last year, whereas, to return essentially a minimal tax return.
I don't think so, Mr. Miss, because I read down the categories of what was increased, and that number alone was 763 of what was, and I documented it, and then with the
I'm not saying
revenue.
that there's no reason for it, I'm just saying it seems to me
Well, the
it's a change in
pension
your
is-
philosophy of
No,
trying to cut the budget rather than increase
no,
the
not at
budget.
all, that's out of our control, group insurance going up, insurance, the rut, terminal leave, pension increases, taxes, this is all out of our control. The numbers that I gave you, it's total $763,000, they're out of our control.
What was the increase amount per household?
40, something
Surplus is within our...
dollars.
40-something dollars?
And being responsible is within our control too.
So I think you can
It's not a change
cover
of
all
philosophy,
or part of that $800,000 with some more use of surplus on hand.
But we are, 1.3 million out of the maximum of 1.5.
And I said, I think we can reduce that by using more of the surplus on hand, not all of it, but more of it and still leave an appropriate cushion, whereas last year, and so I'm worried about changing
Yeah, so
philosophy.
it's not a change of philosophy, actually, because our philosophy has always been to increase services to the town. And if you look at Englewood Cliffs as a town, its property values are great. I know you're trying to sell your house, I see a sign there. I mean, the property values are great, and we rank very high in that category statewide. But we rank low in terms of services and places to live, because we don't have those services. So we're trying to increase the services and the facilities for our children and for everyone else in town as well to enjoy. So to do that, it requires a little bit of an increase. And then juxtapose that against the bond rating that we have to protect as well, which I mentioned earlier, and the unexpected costs of just doing business as a borough in Englewood Cliffs, as there's a transition of philosophy in terms of this town and how things are done, it's costing us a little bit more money. So,
Can I respond to Mr.
And we're
Moss?
planning for the
Yeah.
future.
Can I speak now? I think that's a very good observation on your part. There seems to be a shift in the philosophy from 2 years ago, last year, this year.
Every year ago.
Every time I try to speak, she's being very political on the other side. So,
I'm just saying that-
right, I understand.
From last year's budget, to leave us with a 157,000 surplus going to where we are today, it seems to me to be a major shift of philosophy.
Well,
But you want to...
last year, the average was a $25 tax cut. This year, the average is a $40 increase. 3 years ago, before I was the mayor, I had a whopping 12% increase in my taxes under Gloria and Ed's watch, if you want to do that.
I'd like to make
We'll do that.
I'd like to make a
Yeah.
correction.
Right, no, you're not being political.
You're not being political.
No, absolutely.
We
I'm
understand
just stating
that.
facts.
And you're not up for 2 more years, so I guess you're
I think
okay
it
with
would
that.
be...
Are you
let me
worried,
just-
Gloria?
You know what? When I was speaking, you interrupted me, so let me just have the floor
Have
and
the floor.
answer the...
Have the
I think
floor.
I should give the public...
Okay,
the
so,
floor.
to answer your question, what the budget that they're proposing, there's going to be an increase of $106 per household, okay? This is based on your average house of $1.2 million in this town.
106 if he said 40.
No, okay, so I'm going to explain that to you.
No,
So
you're
out
not-
of the
you're not the
100...
finance chair, I
Oh,
am.
excuse
Yeah.
me,
Let's let
I'm
her
speaking,
explain.
please.
Go ahead.
So out of the $106, what the governing body can control is $48, okay? So the $48 per household, that's something that we can control, and we can use the surplus. But, they're not going to listen to my motion and go along with that, so...
That's my last point. I think, judging from tonight's meeting and the few meetings I have attended, it doesn't seem reasonable to expect that the two sides are going to work together on anything. They may have some good points and you're not going to listen, and you may have some good points and they're not going to listen. I'll offer myself as a mediator if you want to adjourn this. And maybe sit
Is that
down
on a
over
contingency?
on here. I'm willing to do it.
All right,
And
thank
I
you.
suggest, let's listen to what the other side has to say, on both sides. Listen to what the other side has to say. Listen to what the other side has to say. Let's sit down and have some honest negotiation about it. And as I said, I'm happy to mediate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Eastwood?
Lauren Eastwood, 4 Willow Drive. Wasn't some of the increased surplus from correctly collecting the sewage taxes on the corporations, which the previous engineer, the one who had business ties with former Mayor Parisi, had under-collected for years, and the residents subsidized that?
Yes. She asked a question.
Only Democrats are allowed to be political?
But she's independent now, she said. I do listen to you.
Dick, we have a question about debt service and how much of it is on budget. A lot of our debt, if I'm not mistaken, comes from tax appeals. Whereas you guys are paying them out of current revenues, up until last year or this year, they were all bonded. And so instead of putting in the tax rate, when Councilwoman O and Councilman Versa ran the last time or the time before that, they bonded them, so they're in the tax rate now because we're still paying for tax appeals settled in, 2008. Finally, I'd like to point out that, we hear a difference in philosophy. I think the biggest flip in philosophy is Councilman Aversa and Councilwoman Up. They happily voted for a 9% tax increase a couple of years ago, while bonding the tax appeals, so we could pay for them today. And they weren't concerned about raising my taxes 9% several years ago when they weren't running, but now they're concerned about raising the taxes at all.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I do.
Yes, please.
Mayor, you chose to ignore me for quite a while.
What-
I think
what-
you were willing
what
to
do you do?
close
What
without
do you do?
ignoring it. But with ignoring me.
Welcome.
But-
Just state your name, please. And your
Oh,
address.
yes,
Thank
Lynn
you.
Norton, 9 Willow Drive.
Thank you.
And I would really love to see you guys, you wanted to drain the swamp, but I think all you did was drain the class out of the meetings. So I think it's time to start from scratch, pretend it's January 1, and let's treat everybody the way they should be treated, and let people speak when they need to where they need to speak. Let's try to do this right. So, we had a lot of drama in the beginning. They don't want to pass the budget. They don't want to pass the budget. Of course everybody wants to pass the budget. That's just drama. They want everybody to get paid. They want this to continue. When you introduce the budget...
Who's the they?
Pardon me?
Who is the they?
They, and they. The two who chose to use the drama that the Democrats don't want to pass the budget. All they want to do is be able to have more input. The way budgets generally are done is finance is a chair and the committee of the whole. So generally, the whole puts together the budget. Not just one person. This was really...
They did.
The finance... No, I don't believe they did, because two of you went to each department head. Historically, the department heads came to the entire council. And when they did, everybody had the ability to understand what were their priorities, what were their issues, why did they want it, why did they not. They got the ability to defend it instead of the chair defending it. It really should have been left to the entire council to hear the budget. Let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay?
But all were
So
welcome.
that's first of all, so you can introduce the budget. The budget doesn't have to be passed tonight. The budget, and if you look at the DCA information, it has to be passed either by the 21st or by your next scheduled meeting. That's right in the rules. So if you as a council decided to postpone it, you certainly are welcome to do that. That is not an issue.
I think we
And if
voted
you
on
want to
that.
make an amendment, there are certain laws that go with that. Maybe they're not as cut and dry, and you gave certain percentages. You can make an amendment tonight for the budget.
Do you have a
And then-
specific issue with the budget?
I can speak on any issue, Mayor.
But do you have an issue?
I can speak on
Okay.
any issue, Mayor. Yes, I
That's fine.
have
All
a
right.
number of issues. So that's first of all. Talking about the due date, talking about the drama, let's leave the drama out of this. Let's just go to the facts. Regarding Catherine sitting in on all the meetings, Catherine wasn't even hired. So we don't need to exaggerate. Catherine came in about a month ago. Those meetings took place, as you said, 4 months ago. So yeah, Catherine has come in, and she has heard about it. Sorry, Catherine. But, I'm sure she's had some very positive, influence on this. But, when you go back and say she's been involved from the beginning, she really hasn't. Like I say, let's just go to the facts.
That was
let's
never
see.
said, by the way, so that's a
Oh,
fact.
it was in your opening speech. I think you just have to listen to that.
No, it wasn't.
On the amendment, we have the commercial sewer users fees. You had $397,000 in revenue this year. You had budgeted $390,000, and now you're going back to $263,000. So you made a big deal in saying that they didn't do it right. So why are we assuming that we go back to an old budgeted number when you've changed the system and it's so much better? Why have we decreased it? That is the question on the budget. Can somebody answer that?
You're speaking about the budget amendment that's
The
proposed.
budget amendment, yes.
Right, which we found out. Well, let's figure that. Mr. Garbarino?
We received the rate today from the finance department, which was calculated by the engineers, and the rate came in lower than expected, so the CFO is concerned with the amount that we put in the anticipated revenue line item. So therefore, I called the mayor and notified him we should probably amend the budget.
Okay, so
To
really
reflect
nothing
that.
has changed from the prior years.
No, that's not what she
Even
said.
though we thought we were gonna collect more, well, the rate was
That's
different.
not what she said. She just
The
said
rate came in.
the rate that drives the entire number changed.
We have not gained anything from that. On another issue,
That's not what she said. but-
That's not what she said.
I
Go
am
ahead.
interested, actually, in hearing what Ellen had to say. You may not have, but I know I am, and I think the public is. So I think, Ellen, why did you send that letter?
Point of
This
order,
is,
Mayor.
this is,
under new business.
this is new
No,
business.
you don't have to do it
No,
under
no,
new
you-
business.
no.
This is a point of order. You cannot.
You
No,
can
no.
see that they will not let you keep the entire meeting.
This is under new
This is
business.
part-
You don't get to do that. If you have comments, we welcome your comments and your questions. If we could answer your questions today, we will. If not, we'll come back to you.
I believe you brought it up, Mayor.
Yes,
and
you
I
did,
think you
Mayor.
are-
That's right,
you are-
but, no, you have the floor now. If you have something to
I
talk
do.
about,
I am interested in the reason
Donna.
why you wrote that letter, and I would like her to be able to answer that question. Are you going to keep shutting her up?
no,
I mean,
this
a
is new
democracy.
business. This is new
a
business.
democracy.
No, it is democracy now, but it wasn't for
Oh,
42
no,
years.
it was. I don't think you were there for a democracy. I don't think you know what a democracy
Now,
is.
I do know what a
Mayor,
democracy
please
is.
Let people speak. Even Carol.
The video I saw, he came off the bench and almost hit somebody.
Yeah,
That
you know
wasn't what I
what?
saw.
He came off the bench, and it was, we can get into the fact that
What do you want to talk
Ms.
about?
Eastwood attacked
About the
his
budget.
son.
I mean,
Let's talk about the budget. We have
So
serious,
anyway, I am allowed to ask anything I want to. This is the
but she's
public
not allowed to
session.
just go off.
She is allowed to
No,
answer
she's
my
not.
question.
Yes, I can answer.
Mrs. Clark, will you please answer my question?
So, going back to last week, apparently there was a memorandum that was sent to the Director of the Division of Local Government Services in March 24th for the introduction of the budget. First, I have a question, actually, well, I don't know, I guess Bill, Wu, and Mr. Parkins can answer that later, but I don't know if they were aware of this memorandum, but no one else was aware of this memorandum, okay? I just found out about it on Friday. And the mayor tried to circumvent my email, which I am definitely entitled to read tonight.
Go ahead. I read it for you.
No, you didn't. You paraphrased for me, just like you do every time.
Right, but the
Right?
the
And so I
email
will
was,
read this email tonight, and you guys decide if this is wrong or not, if this is acceptable or if this is wrong,
So for
okay?
those of you who
And
came
you
in
say
late,
it's politics, but I've never been political, okay? So let me finish. Yeah, you can ask all the residents in town,
Would
all
you
right?
please let her finish reading?
All right, so this is an email that I sent to the Director of Division of Local Government Services.
Because
this-
you abstained.
This afternoon, yes, this
Okay.
afternoon, because I abstained in the introduction, okay? Please be advised that
okay.
on Friday, April 14, 2017, I discovered that a memorandum was
All right,
surreptitiously
all right.
sent by a borough attorney to your office
Okay.
on March 24th.
Ms. Park,
2017.
Councilwoman Park, excuse me for
Along
just a
with the
minute.
budget
Just
package.
a minute, please.
Why
Okay?
do people keep interrupting
Okay.
me and not letting me speak?
Okay, for just a minute, because I know you're going to read that. I just caution you because certain statements within there are inflammatory and certain statements within there are inaccurate, and you now want to read it into the public record. I understand, but you have a couple of things that are glaringly incorrect if you looked at the video from that meeting.
Okay, and you can clarify that after the fact.
No, I
No,
don't need to clarify it. I'm
No.
only, I
I'm going
am
to finish my
cautioning,
email, please.
Proceed at your own peril.
I am cautioning you
Okay.
as a council member that the characterizations within your email,
And you know what? The public can look at the video and decide for yourself.
yes, I understand.
Okay.
proceed at your own
All
peril.
right, this memorandum, do you hear that threat? At my own peril. And this is exactly what you did.
Read it already.
Right, all right.
You're defaming people,
Okay,
but go
this-
ahead.
okay, this memorandum was never disclosed to any of the Democratic council persons until yesterday, when a copy of said memorandum was reluctantly released to us after it demanded several times, right? We only discovered said... Mike? We only discovered said memorandum when Councilwoman Gloria O called your office and spoke to you with questions
regarding the budget introduction. The fact that the borough attorney and the mayor and Council President McMorro kept this memorandum a secret is not only outrageous, but completely unethical, and an investigation shall be underway. Secondly, Borough Council Anne Marie Rizzuto utterly mischaracterized the facts pertaining to my abstention vote at the budget introduction on March 20th, when she stated that nothing in the record suggests that Councilwoman Park was opposed to anything in the budget. Attached here too is a link to the video of the budget introduction. So you guys can also go look at the link on the video, March 20th, okay? At 10 minutes into the meeting, I asked whether I could ask a question on the budget. I was told no, because there was a vote on the table. As the introduction of the budget,
That's the first.
right, that was my first mistake,
First
okay?
mistake.
No, your question at that time was not about the budget, it was about the cap ordinance.
Okay.
And because the vote had been undertaken already, and you did not make a motion, you were not heard at that time. However, it was not about the budget, it was about the capital ordinance, and please go to 10 minutes into last meeting, March 20th, and you will see. So that's a mischaracterization made to the state local government services division.
Okay, that is fine, but then we're 24 minutes into the meeting, and I again voiced to President McMorro that I had questions regarding the budget, and the next 25 minutes is a lengthy discussion after the vote. And then,
Again, that's the second mischaracterization, the vote regarding the budget. Excuse me, if you look at the times and look at the vote regarding the budget was taken after lengthy discussion and lengthy presentation.
your letter said, quote unquote, "Nothing in the record suggests that Councilwoman Park was opposed to anything in the budget." If you look at the video, I was opposed to the fact that I had to vote without being allowed to ask a question, right? I was told to
That
vote,
was the
and so
capital
I...
ordinance, not the
Would you let
budget.
her finish?
Okay, and
Please.
in any event, okay, I'm gonna...
I say that with all due respect.
No, she's acting counsel.
In all due respect.
In all due respect,
She's
people
trying to
people
finish
should
her
not be
letter.
defamed by
She's
other
trying-
council
You
people.
defame them
You-
all the time.
No,
all right,
So
go
I
ahead.
see a difference.
Please,
You get up here,
let's
you
get
insult
through
them,
this.
you
Wait,
insult
okay.
them.
Okay,
It's
so
a bad precedent you've set.
Mr. Bill Wu, were you aware of this memorandum that was sent on March 24th?
No. This was an administrative matter that I handled with the mayor. There was a memo to the mayor and the finance chair.
Which is Carol
There-
tomorrow.
Correct. And thereafter, as you will see from the cover letter, I copied the mayor on the submission to local government services. No one else had that memo. However, it was not meant to be hidden, it was not surreptitious, and it was not a cover-up. There was a vote. The DGLS had a presentation. They made a decision. They received your email today with all of your comments.
Yes.
And 3 emails came back to proceed to adoption today at 3:07, 3:11, and 3:15. 3 emails
Just
from
to be
LGS.
clear, my objection
After
is-
talking to the Attorney General assigned to DLGS.
And again, to be clear, my objection is not whether or not the introduction gets, the budget gets introduced. I would gladly vote yes if you gave me more information, but the fact of the matter is, every time I try to speak, which is it's evidently today that you will not allow me to speak, this is why I abstained, okay? Secondly, you say it's not a cover-up, but no one else knew about it, and you could have come to me, Anne Marie, and said, you know what, we need to change the vote. Can you either say yes or no? And I would have been fine with that. But the fact of the matter is, you wrote this letter to the department head referring to my vote and never told me about it. There was no discussion, no email, nothing about my abstention, and this was sent out with anyone else knowing. So you tell me.
It was an administrative matter being handled with the mayor and the Division of Local Government Services. There is not any ethical violation, cover-up, or surreptitiousness about this.
Okay, so I have another question. I have another question then. So if we do not vote affirmatively today,
You misunderstand what I said at the last meeting.
Okay.
I did not say you must vote affirmatively, meaning you must vote yes.
no, yes or
What
no.
you,
You
what
said I
you
would not
must
abstain.
do, what you must do, and this is in discussion, look at the look at all of the statutes and the cases on them and all. Abstention is not an option when you are dealing with a budget. It should be a yes, especially at adoption. It should be a yes or no. That is my advice to the council. If you feel you still must abstain, then you really need to assert why you are abstaining, because it is suspect under the circumstances. The only time an abstention is upheld is in the two cases arising from Hoboken and Newark, where they were filling a vacancy for a council member, and people abstained, and their abstentions were upheld. The reason why was because you could vote yes to fill the vacancy, no to not fill the vacancy, or a third legitimate choice, which was you can vote abstention because the public has a right to fill that vacancy. In this instance, it should be a yes or no vote on the budget. And I would be remiss if I did not tell you, as I indicated briefly last week, there are significant problems with not passing a budget. I'm not talking about timeliness or this or that. There are significant issues with not passing a budget. And a abstention is a suspect vote after all of this time, all of these meetings, and all of this going back and forth. It's a suspect vote. It doesn't look like you are in a position to make a proper abstention.
Okay.
I'm saying affirmatively there should be a yes or no.
I understand that,
Okay.
but you made it seem like if we if we had to vote yes or no today, if not, that you're saying there's a detriment to our borough. Isn't that what you said at the last meeting?
Well, not passing a budget is a detriment to your
But I'm
borough.
talking about tonight.
Yes?
So if we don't pass it tonight, then there's no way we can pass it at the next regular
No, I
meeting.
didn't say that. I didn't say that last week, I'm not saying that
So then
now.
my question again is, then what is the detriment if we don't pass it tonight?
Currently, there was a vote taken to put a budget off, and I believe your council voted no to that.
Right.
So
You know, and
there-
you had 3 months to ask questions, and so far tonight,
I
you haven't
asked
asked one
more-
substantive question, okay?
Yes, we have.
No, you haven't. Continue.
Next question, going on to a completely different subject.
Well, do you want to finish reading? Since Ms. Norton brought it up, and I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I could finish it, but again, I don't appreciate letters being written with my name on it.
Your vote is a public record, okay? Your
That's-
vote is about, if it's
Then you
embarrassing
should've
you,
came to
that's
me
your
and said,
problem.
you know what, we need to
You know what,
change your
can
vote.
I speak?
Instead, you write this letter without letting me know.
Wait, can I speak? I'd like to ask the borough attorney a question. At what point did you know that the budget didn't, excuse me? You should be talking
All
to
right,
each
so is
other.
there anyone else from the
So
public?
I have a question to the borough attorney. At what point did you know that the budget didn't get introduced? Because you didn't say anything
That's not what
at
she
the
said.
special meeting. When the introduction meeting,
That- she just said
when
what
we
it
had
is.
3, 2, and 1 at the meeting, because I watched the video, just like you have, you have not mentioned anything about the budget. Maybe there's a, chance that it didn't get introduced because of the abstention. You didn't say anything.
No, actually-
So at what point did you know
We
that
actually figured
you had
this
a
was-
problem?
We actually figured this was your political game, so
No.
we went to the state the next
Everything
morning,
is-
and we asked the
everything is
state, please
political."
confirm that it's right, that it was introduced, and they confirmed it, and that's what that memo was all about. And now you're frustrated that your plan to screw up our budget
You speak about
failed.
transparency every day at all these meetings, and yet you never...
In a nutshell, folks.
I'm sorry, but with all due respect to everyone, Councilman Wu needs to leave, Park needs to leave. We would like to move on with the agenda. Councilwoman Park, have you spoken as much as you need to speak?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman O, have you spoken as much as you need to speak?
Right now.
Thank you. Councilman Aversa, is there anything you want to add right now, because we need to move on to the next part of the agenda? Yes, we're not done with the public, we're aware of that. Councilman Aversa, anything else right now?
I'd like to say that, listening to you, Counselor,
Yes.
that an abstention in this case appears, from what I'm gathering from what you're saying,
Yeah.
would actually make this open for further discussion. Am I incorrect in that?
No, I don't think you're incorrect. Let me
I just wanna
just
make sure I
explain
understand.
something to you.
So,
The
because-
budget will not pass unless there are 4 affirmative votes. If anyone does an abstention, and the mayor is deprived of a vote, there will be further action that will be taken.
So what would be the further action?
There could be sanctions against the borough, there could be sanctions against individual council members, there can be a taking over of the budget by the DLGS, there can be a Superior Court action to force action on the budget, there can be all
But
kinds of things.
isn't that only if we don't do it by the, within the required time?
Right.
If any of you abstain, you're hurting our children, our residents.
Listen,
Yes, you are.
please.
And I will seek every sanction available against you individually.
I'm just asking a legitimate question,
All right.
Attorney. I'm just asking a legitimate
Yes,
question.
I understand,
So-
and I don't have all the answers all the time.
And I remember what you said last meeting about our fiduciary responsibility.
Yes,
So,
yes.
wouldn't it be, and I'm asking your opinion,
You're not going to hold this town hostage.
Can I just also point out to you that the budget, the date for adoption of a budget, introduction and adoption was February 17th. That came and went, and the LGS is aware that we have our introduction rate, about a month late, we had the introduction, and is aware that we have an adoption, which is about a month late. Now, I know there's been some intimation of we can carry this till May, but I can't tell you that for sure, because I did not have a discussion with the LGS about carrying this, this budget. Further, you don't have the votes to carry the budget. So I leave it up to you how you want to vote. I would like to suggest to the mayor that we move to further public discussion and close the public session, because this councilman has to leave on some kind of...
We're going to reopen, relax. Who have a motion?
It's just one thing, there's a public document right out there by the BCA that gives you specifically the dates. I can send that to you if you'd
We
like.
know the dates.
But it was revised and to April 21st. And this is revised all the way down, the adoption date is
Yes,
revised.
I'm
the other
aware
dates
of that.
revised. There's a little asterisk, and
Yes.
this is public information that
Yes.
says you need to pass it by this date or at your next regularly scheduled
Yes.
meeting. This is the information they
We know
provide.
this.
And the other thing is that,
And
like,
just so you know, we put a public notice in the newspaper for today's adoption to be within the time frames that public notice says. Yes, they extended.
February, it was actually due
Okay.
April 21st.
It was due
According to their
February
information.
18th, and DLGS exercised its authority for all governing bodies to extend. I'm well aware of that. So we are already, we are within their confines right now. We can wait till the May 11th next regular meeting.
Right.
Except your council has noticed it for tonight and has voted to do it tonight.
But they could notice it again if they choose. And also,
I don't know about that.
This user-friendly budget was
Here's
supposed
what I'd
to
like
be
to do.
included at introduction, and it wasn't just...
Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have a motion to close this segment of the public,
No.
and then we'll reopen. You can stay right there. Don't move, don't move.
This is budget, no.
No, we're not open, the budget, we're gonna open for the budget.
We're going to open for the budget, just stay there.
No.
You don't vote. Can I have a motion to close the public
People
portion?
that want to leave this meeting, that's their problem.
Do you want to,
Not ours.
are you speaking to the budget?
I'm speaking, yes, I'm speaking.
Okay,
about-
anybody else speaking about anything other than the budget?
And to other things.
Then we'll open it again. No.
I'm allowed to speak.
All right, well, Ms. Norton, you've had your time. Yes,
Hold
sir.
on.
That's their
Oh,
problem.
but if I want to stay, I can, you gave everybody else...
No, you've had plenty of time,
Oh,
sir.
no, Mayor, I can stay too, you didn't, but unfortunately, I'm not, for your sake, but I could...
No, it's not for my sake.
Oh, it is...
It's not for my
Trust
sake.
me, it is...
No, it's not actually. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tony Moore, President, 26 South Street, with this. I'm not fixing the budget. It's above my pay grade. I only have it. Last week I was here and spoke to Mr. Choppy, who said to me, he was asking me for the Lions Club to get a 5-year lease or whatever it is.
Right.
I want to know why 3 members for the past 7 years want a lease on a building. It only has 3 members. And it's not open for anybody else to join the Lions Club. Well, why we even keep that building that's ready to collapse? That's my question.
Okay, duly noted, and we're going to take that up when we have the next...
Please, because that's my only question. Only 3 people have.
God bless you, but I really can't address your concerns, and I am aware of those
And
concerns.
good luck on your budget.
Thank you, sir.
Now you have to recognize that he needs to leave. You
Okay.
need to-
Okay.
Mr. Park, you're gonna leave us, stay connected on the phone, right? Okay.
He's connected.
Can we do that,
Yeah.
Lizette? Are you good to
Just
connect
for-
him up?
She's connected.
Just for the record, Councilman Park has to leave. He's already on his cell phone, and I've dialed him in, and he will be available to vote via phone.
You will hear everything simultaneously.
Okay?
Okay, thank you, take care.
Thank you, sir. 8:25 PM.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Lizette.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Jack Dyer, 34 Townsend. I assure you, ladies, this is not political.
What's your name?
Jack Dyer. Actually, in shop. Jactues. So I travel on Hudson Terrace at least 3 times a day, maybe 4 times a day. And I notice that there is a lot of issues on this side. So I've taken some pictures. I think he was the distributor. And, it's an embarrassment.
Okay, it's a county road, and we'll call them.
Well, I understand it's not, but the other side is ours, and that has a little different rules. And, sorry.
It's a county road,
Excuse me?
it's a county road, though. It's a county road,
Yes, I understand. Oh, so both sides are there? Is that what you're saying?
my understanding.
Okay.
We will email it to them tomorrow, and tell them to come clean it up.
Okay.
Mark was notified by me to have the county come in and clean up all of this.
Very good.
Ahead of the game here. Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you for the photos. One's blurry, though. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Yes, ma'am.
Karen Geiger, 270 First of all, I have a question for the attorney. I'm reading section 4.6, called public hearing, time and place, and then it goes to section 4.9, which
Right.
reads amendments to the budget.
Mhm.
And it says that the governing body may amend the budget during or after the public hearing.
Right.
All such amendments shall be read in full and shall be forthwith submitted to the director. Period. And then it goes on to talk about no amendments shall affect, and it gives percentages for increases and for tax increases, et cetera, et cetera. It talks nothing about reducing the tax increase. So I don't understand, madam, why you have made the call that prohibits the borough from amending the budget at this meeting in light of what 40A says.
48:4-9 amendment, correct?
Amendments to the budget.
Okay.
Section B. It has 3
Yes.
sections, A, B, and C.
Correct.
And B says the government body may amend the budget
Correct.
during or after the public hearing.
Yes.
Period.
That's correct. The motion that was made cannot be assessed to determine its impact on the entirety of the budget. The problem that we have is that it wasn't reviewed by LGS, so we can't act on it.
Excuse me.
I am not saying,
You're
I'm sorry.
talking, but you're making up a circle. You're saying they can't amend the budget, so it can't go to DLGS, because it has to go to DLGS before they can amend it. But the amendment has nothing to do with the operating budget. It has to do with the revenues to be raised from taxes, which they are proposing be lowered to benefit us, the taxpayers.
That's not what council said.
That's exactly what they are proposing. So they're not touching any line items in the budget. They are touching the amounts to be raised by revenues. And revenue raising or revenue lowering is not at all addressed by this statute. And I would be shocked if DLGS said you couldn't lower the amount that you were raising in taxes. I've never heard that before, unless somebody is being imprudent, which this is not the case. And now I'm going to go on for the rest of my comments. To the auditor, please. The $295,000 that Mrs. Sabara spoke about. You mentioned that charges to the capital improvement account are only used for the down payment of capital ordinances. Isn't that what you just said?
The intention of a capital improvement fund is to utilize that fund for down payments on capital
ordinances, right? I just want to understand what you said. So can you explain to me why in 2016 a check was cut for $245,000 charged to the capital improvement account, which paid for tax settlements that were not bonded, were not reported to the local finance board, and were dealt with as current expenditures? How did it get charged to that account?
I don't know that it's...
I'm telling you that the voucher says it. If it did, can you explain to me how?
You'd have to ask the CFO. The 2016 audit is in progress but not complete, so I don't have that answer. And the capital fund is a fund with its own checking account. The capital improvement fund does not have its own checking account. I don't know how you would even charge something specifically to that line item in the budget. It would show as an overexpenditure.
It would show, yes. I would appreciate it when you do the audit, that you look for this check that was done in March of 2016 and was charged to, I believe, the capital improvement account of the capital fund. It was not a capital expense, and I would like that explained.
All tax appeals eventually become capital ordinances.
Not these, not these.
The way that New Jersey governmental accounting works is a tax appeal is a current fund issue, and when and if you decide to go to the local finance board and issue permanent debt, that permanent debt that gets moved to the capital fund.
Absolutely.
So any expenditures that were made out of the capital fund for that were charged to that improvement ordinance would be out of the capital fund. The actual capital improvement fund for 2016, as far as what was charged,
I'll be happy to send you the check when we get to it. Moving on. What you just said, sir, I'm somewhat confused about this. At the budget workshop meeting, Chris Battaglia said that it wasn't appropriate procedure, I believe I'm not sure if he was still in the room, to charge the $363,000 to the current operating budget for current year tax appeal, for prior year tax appeals that were not submitted to the local finance board. The local finance board disallowed the $295 as an emergency appropriation and required that you budget within the cap because the amount was paid. So I want the audit to please explain why you were all permitted to do this and why it happened. Moving on, the deferred school taxes in the budget. I'm sorry, this is too high and I'm not going to. I did a little bit of my homework on that, and I just wanted to talk about the amounts and address these to the council so you understand what's going on. In this year's budget, the amount of deferred school taxes was $730,107. Last year, it was $342,998. Not a trivial amount, but definitely half of what happened this year. And that half was because the school budget increased significantly last year, and as I understand, it was increased again. The year before that, it was only $102,000. So what you see, if you follow that tracking, the whole law, the legislative intent, the reason that you all last week approved the deferred school taxes by resolution, I believe, is because it was set up by the state legislature, and they've written about it, as a way to increase the surplus available to municipalities. That was the intention. That's why it's legal to use it. And this amount has been used virtually in its entirety every year that I have gone back and tracked the budget, and I went back as far as 2013. So this has been a recurring theme of money budgeted in surplus and money used to reduce taxes. And each year, this money gets regenerated because the school taxes go up. And somehow, even though the budgeted surplus amount has gone down to amounts bordering 90,000 and 110,000, that's about the amount we've always left, or you've always left, in surplus historically, year after year after year. This year, you're putting forward a budget that leaves in excess of 700,000, no, 900,000, almost $1 million. I'm sorry, almost $1 million you are leaving in surplus. Instead of refunding all of this overtaxation to us, the residents, we are the people who pay these taxes. There is no reason for you to build up this huge nest egg. Our bond rating, I mean, I do know a little bit about bond ratings. Bond ratings, yes, it's a balancing, you're right, Mr. Garbarini, between the amount you have in surplus and all other factors affecting your budget and how you work. It's not just a one-item deal, and I'm sure you never meant to imply that. But with if we were to increase the amount taken from surplus to the $1,500,000, almost $1,600,000, $1,575,000 is the maximum you said we could use. If you were to go to that maximum, you would still have $700,000 left in surplus, which is more than we have ever had. And we have a budget, I can go through it line by line. You're going to be generating more and more surplus. And the school budget is going to continue to have the deferred taxes. So these surplus items are going to be regenerated unless for some reason the school budget goes down significantly, which hasn't happened, and no one is suggesting it should. It just doesn't happen. So what you're doing in this budget by nest egging and harboring and not allowing this surplus to go back to us in a reasonable amount, which is at least up to the 1.575. You should spend it to the max because you still would have over $600,000 left. And that is a huge amount of surplus historically in our budget, where we've never had more than 110. That's all that's been left. And yet miraculously, it always regenerated back up to $1 million. So you could use 850, 910 last year, and now all of a sudden still have this number. So I'm speaking fast. I can document them going back through all the budgets. And I want to understand why you as a council, very simply, would not take more money out of surplus to reduce this budget and give us a tax cut this year again. I want to know why you are playing politics with the budget this year. Is it because the two Democrats are running? Last year, getting a tax cut was so important to you.
We heard it over and over and over again. You even buried $363,000 of expenses that you paid in order to not give a tax cut to the borough. Yes, Mr. Mayor, you can look up at the ceiling. You should be. The 295 miraculously appeared right after the budget as an emergency appropriation, which was denied. Moving on, the RUD. We talk about the items that are controllable in the budget. The RUD is controllable because you have opted, by the way you're handling tax appeals, to add $316,000 to the RUD. The RUD is a calculated number, as I understand it. The $500,000 is a calculation that's done. There's a format that you get as an auditor, or I don't know who gets it, as to how to compute the RUD. It has to do with your assessed valuation and all the factors. And that gives you your minimum RUD. The RUD can also be done as the average of 3 years, which is sometimes done with the permission of the local finance board. In the case where you've had a drop in assessed valuation, you can choose to do that. I haven't done that calculation. But in addition, you have decided to take all tax appeals that you have negotiated, not prior people, but that you have negotiated, at a current year revenue, except for $100,000 that you put into 2018. So that's your decision, and it is controllable. As far as the items in the budget, I could go through it line by line and ask questions, but do you want me to do that now, or will the public have time to speak? Because I'm happy to do it at either point of your pleasure.
It's up to you.
It's up to me, then I'll go through it now. Excuse me? What did you say?
We're just, for purposes of the agenda, we're wondering if you're going to repeat anything during the budget hearing.
I try not to repeat myself in the same way.
Thank you.
Okay. One of the numbers I wanted to know about in the budget in addition was sort of, you piqued my curiosity when you put an amendment in tonight to increase the amount you're taking from capital surplus from $273,000 to $400,000. I don't have the exact number with me, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. As I read the budget, and perhaps I misread it, there were over $600,000 in capital surplus. So basically, we have decided all of a sudden that in order to maintain whatever it is that you wanted to maintain, that when you took down the water and sewer hookup fees, that you were told you couldn't charge at the level that you had predicted, you opted to take more money out of that surplus account. What I'd like to know is how much is being left in that surplus account. Why not use it all? Mr. Auditor, can you just tell me how much is left in the account?
Mr. Garbarini, if you could answer that, thank you.
$216,498.90 would be the unaudited fund balance in the capital fund.
So that is the amount that you had that you were originally taking 273 from, now have increased it to 400 and change, and you still have over 200 left. Right? We're talking about the same thing.
The capital fund balance, again, unaudited, between used in the budget for 17 and the amendment, brings it down to $216,498.90.
So then my question to the council is, why not use more? It was an arbitrary decision to go from 273 to 400. Why not increase it and go higher? Going through the budget itself, there seems to be sort of an anachronism that I'm noticing, or I don't know what it is. But when you are increasing your permits and fees for the construction code official, in 2017 is construction code official and other, your anticipated revenues are about $595. Yet if I were to look at the actuals received in 2016, we're at $665,000. So I want to know know why you take that arbitrary other number as opposed to using the amount that was realized in the past year in revenues on that account, especially in light of the fact that you've increased all the costs on the expense side. You've increased the cost of the plumbing code official, the electrical official, and the construction code official. So I assume you're going to be having to do more work, and that's tied to the increased revenues that you're even projecting. Why not go higher?
Can I answer?
Well, I'm just saying, they're not arbitrary numbers, those words are your words, they're not our words.
Yes, they are
As
my
a matter of
words. They're
fact, so,
absolutely
and
my
they're not
words.
factual words, so.
They're my words, but you didn't explain to me why you're not going to the amount realized.
Because
cash.
it was recommended to us by our professionals not to, and that's what
And
we're
how
going
did
to
you
do.
pick 550 and 45? Where did it come from?
We
When I
consulted.
did budgets, I had it documented, line by line, the basis for every number. I couldn't say the professionals, I was the professional. Now, you're here, and you can't absolve your role and your responsibility when you pick a number in a budget by saying the professionals told us. They do the budget, you have to explain it to me.
Of course we do. We
You have
rely
to
on the
explain it.
advice given to us
And
by
they
our
told you to put
professionals.
550 and 45, that seems like an awfully detailed evaluation.
It's
of
not
the
arbitrary,
budget.
trust me. We're trying to increase our
I'm
bond
trying
rating
to-
as well.
I'm trying to understand the basis for a revenue item in the budget.
So that's a living document. It's been going on since the beginning of January, and we've been working on it.
And the public
We have a
now has time
CPA
to speak.
advising us, and I appreciate your comments. Thank you. But I'm not going to let you say that it's arbitrary, though, without
Well, I
responding.
think unless you can explain it to me, obviously you originally had 397 in for the sewer use fee. You dropped that down to the prior year level based on a recalculation in the format. That's fine. When you look at the cable fees, all the other fees, the recreation fees. Let's look at recreation fees. I was at the last meeting, and you had an ordinance, I believe, that were raising recreation fees. And you realized $103,000 in the recreation fees component of the budget last year. And now you're budgeting 90, even though you're increasing programming in the budget, and you're raising fees for all of these programs. So why is that number going down? It should be going up. My comments, please go.
The fee did go up, the number did go up.
No, the number went up from the budgeted level, but not from the amount that you realized in cash.
But that's not how you budget.
Yes,
You know, you
it
think
is
you're-
how you
excuse
budget,
me.
Carol. I teach budget.
Well, I tell you, why don't you
No,
run,
no,
I tell you what,
no, no.
I got a good one for you. Why don't you run for office? You could sit up here and then you could do the budget.
You know, Carol,
Okay,
if
why
I
don't
wanted
you
to
do it?
run for office, I would have.
Well,
Right
okay,
now,
good luck.
I'm sitting here,
Good
and
luck.
I'm a resident, and I'm asking questions, and I am entitled
We're
to
giving you
ask
answers,
questions.
Steiger. I'm the
And
finance
you
chair.
are not
Ms.
answering.
Steiger, I am.
You're not listening.
You're not listening. We listen to our professionals, that's why we pay
I
them money.
understand.
You don't like their answers.
What stops with you, not with them.
I'm sorry you
It's
don't like their
you who have
answers,
the
but if
fiduciary
our,
duty.
excuse me, now if our construction code official says this is my recommendation for where you should be, that's what we're gonna listen to. If our recreation department head is gonna say
Isn't
this
it
is where you
ironic
should be,
that all the revenues are overstated? All the revenues are understated compared to the actual money you took in.
Which way
That
is it? You
makes
just
no
said two
sense.
different things, ma'am.
All the revenues are understated compared to revenues realized.
That's
but
your view.
recreation's not a money-making account, okay? It's
I'm
a
not
moving-
saying it should
Well, then,
make
but you're-
money.
but
You
that's
are
what you're asking
raising
us to
fees.
do.
You are raising fees. You have put forward an ordinance to raise fees. Isn't that what you did this last meeting?
No.
It
No,
was
we actually
introduced by
didn't.
title?
No, we didn't.
You said, I saw
It
a
was
thing to
pulled
raise
off the
fees.
agenda.
It was pulled, well, you were certainly
You weren't here.
contemplating it. Oh, I wasn't here when it was pulled, sorry. You have 103,000 in rec fees realized. Why are you budgeting a lower number than what you received?
That was,
when
I
you're
gave you the
increasing
answer. That was
programs?
that was the recreation department's recommendation.
The recreation, okay. Everything is everybody's recommendation. Let's go on, we're moving right along. The capital fund balance I dealt with.
What else?
Excuse me. Receipts for delinquent taxes are going up, or your budget amount for that is going up from 274, 273 realized to 331. What are you doing differently that makes you assume that that amount is going to increase?
Can you answer that?
That's a statutory calculation that Chris performed based upon the prior year's collection rate on the delinquent taxes, and that gets applied to the actual amount outstanding. It's a statutory calculation that he performed.
Thank you.
You satisfied with that answer?
Yes, actually, that's a wonderful answer, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Garbarini. That was a wonderful answer.
Legal services. I'm not even gonna go there.
Oh, why don't you? I would like you to go.
You
on.
go.
Yeah, I would go there. You might be using your borough attorney to monitor Oprahs.
Well, actually,
There are bills incurred to
yeah.
monitor Oprahs. Oprahs don't get answered as they should be and reviewed by solely the borough clerk. The borough clerk sends them to the borough attorney. The borough attorney monitors them, decides how they should be answered. That's not the borough attorney.
Ms. Geiger, as a plaintiff against the law, against the borough, we
Yes.
do have to incur expenses to deal with your litigations that you have
And the
brought
other 8
against
or
the
9 that you
frivolously
have,
brought, may I add,
but not at all frivolous.
but you're wasting your taxpayers' money, so if you really cared about your fellow taxpayers, you wouldn't be doing things like
If we did it
that.
properly, we wouldn't bring it. Talk about the rule of law.
We're just stopping personal vendettas.
No, you are.
Go ahead.
The municipal planning board, you added, I believe, you said at the budget hearing that you're adding $30,000 for a study. When I look at the encumbrances in the budget, the few things that I could find, it seems that they spend $20,000 for a planner, so why is $30,000 sitting there?
We have a lot of planning.
Oh, you have a lot of planning.
You know, I need to just, you know, sometimes when you're doing a budget, and you're putting numbers in, and you're doing them to the best of your ability, you don't ever want to put under, because if you put under, then you can't do the
No,
project.
you've been moving from
You're
under to
interrupting
to
me.
change
You're
appropriations.
very rude, Ms. Geiger.
I didn't
You're-
ask you.
But I'm responding
Respond
to
this.
your comment, and I'm allowed to do that.
Oh, all of a sudden you're allowed to respond, but they weren't. How
I'm the finance
interesting.
chair, Ms. Geiger.
You're just a
You're-
council
you're-
person. I'm speaking not as the budget partner, I'm just speaking, you asked me
You
to
said
talk
you
on
were
the budget,
asking
I'll
your
talk on the
questions
budget.
on the budget.
I
That's
said
what
I
you
would
said.
ask some of my questions on the budget. Obviously, you're not prepared to really answer
Okay, well, you're
questions.
going on to about 30 minutes now, so
Well, I'll
please
come
wrap
back
it
when we
up.
come to the budget section on the budget.
No, finish up.
No,
But-
I'm going to choose to come back on the budget section.
That's good. I'm sure your
Because I don't need to
fellow-
hear your nastiness projected out to me. It's
Thank
bad
you.
enough, it's bad enough that I have to sit in the audience and hear you demean and diminish other elected officials who were there just like you. They were elected just like you. The same voters that put them there, put you there. And you should respect them, just like we come here and we offer respect to this body.
Really?
You shouldn't be cutting...
Really? I've not
Yes,
seen
really.
that.
You shouldn't be cutting them off from speaking. You should not be diminishing and demeaning everything they say. And Madam Attorney, as you're making a face, you shouldn't be sending letters.
That's my face.
You shouldn't be sending letters without informing the entire community.
Thank you for your comments. I didn't hear you agree with the abstention, so that's what gave pause to that document that Ms. Park wrote.
I agree with the abstention vote.
You do? Okay, good.
Yes, I do.
All right, so anybody else from the public? Anyone else from the public? I see a hand in the back.
Yes, you do.
Come on up. State your name and address, please.
Melanie Simon, 33 Lynn Drive. As a member of the prior administration, that does not make me an enemy of democracy. I pay my taxes, I'm a law-abiding citizen, I support the Constitution, and that gives me the right to dissent. And I'm sorry if you don't feel that that is my right, Mr. Mayor.
I'm welcoming your comments. It's
Do you?
exactly how I feel, yes.
No, well, that's not what you
That's
always
exactly how
manage
I-
to say, and you said it again tonight, and I take exception to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? If not, can I have a motion to close the public portion of this meeting?
So moved.
All in favor? Okay, great. So we're at the second reading, the public hearing of ordinance 17-04, ordinance to exceed budget and establish cap banks.
Mark, I'm gonna need you to vote.
Does anyone on council have any
Turn your
questions
phone on.
before we open up
to the public? Is that the one we just received today?
No.
No, you had, no, it's the ordinance.
I just want to make sure.
No, it's 17-04. Okay, no members of council have comment. Can I have a motion to open to
I
the
make
public?
that motion.
Just on ordinance 17-04.
We need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
No, roll call. Roll call.
Roll call, sorry.
Councilpersons Aversa,
No.
to open to the public?
Uh-oh.
I guess you know
Do you
how
amend
it's
your
gonna
vote?
It's reading ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
E. Park?
Yes.
O.
Yes.
McMorro?
Yes.
M. Park?
Yeah.
Wu?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so, if there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on ordinance 17-04, which is ordinance to exceed budget and establish cap bank, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and it's just on that ordinance, please.
Cap ordinance.
Okay, I don't see anyone, so, can I have a motion to close the public portion, please?
So moved.
McMorro. Wu.
Okay.
Councilpersons Aversa, to close?
We don't have to vote to close.
Yeah.
No? Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Okay,
And I want to make a motion. To vote.
Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 17-04, ordinance to exceed budget and establish a cap bank.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
Have a roll call?
Councilpersons Aversa,
No.
E. Park?
No.
O.
No.
McMorro?
Yes.
M. Park?
Yes.
Wu?
Yes.
Mayor, there are 3 yeses and there's 3 nos.
Predictably, yes.
Okay. 1704 passes.
All right, next up is the 2017 budget adoption, public hearing.
I think
I'm going to
the,
defer to, hold on a second, no, I'm going to let Borough Council.
the
We need a
agenda has-
resolution for,
agenda says introduction.
What?
I don't, it says adoption, I don't see where it says introduction.
It says adoption.
No, I gave you a hard copy. Look at the paper.
I'm not sure what you're reading.
It was
Councilman.
revised.
Okay.
All right. So we need a resolution, did we do the public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
You have to open it to the public.
We're going to open to the public on the 2007 budget, 2017 budget adoption, which includes discussion on amending the budget resolution 1785 and resolution to adopt the budget 1763. Before you open to the public, Mayor, can you ask if any of your council members have questions or queries about those 3 items?
Okay, does any member of council have any further questions or comments regarding Resolution 1785, Resolution 1763, or the 2017 budget adoption? If not, could I have a motion to open the public?
Mayor, I just have one question. The sewer fees in 2015, do we have to mention for that? Yeah, prior to last year.
Hold on a second. 15.
I don't have it. All right. Somebody please provide those, Councilman. Thank you.
Motion to open.
Have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor of
All in
opening to
favor?
the public?
Aye.
Okay. Aye.
If there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard, I'm going to pick you.
Mr. Barr.
No, listen, I need to finish. Yes, I do, and you keep doing that. Okay. So, if this is regarding comments or questions only regarding the 2017 budget adoption, Resolution 1785 and Resolution 1763, adopt the budget. Please raise your hand.
Amend budget and adopt.
Yes,
Amend
in that
budget and
order.
adopt
In
budget.
that- yeah.
All right.
That's how we vote.
Yes.
Okay, that was strange. Douglas Sabari, 106 Hollywood. The only addition that I'd like to speak about is, I didn't realize that there was this extra 200,000 in capital surplus. And I think that would be a great way to make the budget flat, and it wouldn't hurt your bonding, because it's not there, like, nobody sees it, it's not in the budget. I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for this change tonight and Karen bringing it up. So I do a lot of work on budgets, that's what I do, but that I didn't realize. So I think if this council now is aware that you have this extra 200,000 just sitting around, why not use it to decrease taxes to the taxpayers, so this way we'd be flat, and it wouldn't hurt you. Like, I don't see a downside to amending that same amendment that you have, and just taking more of that surplus, so that we'll be flat, and there'll be no tax increase to taxpayers.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to be heard? Yes, Ms. Geiger. Oh, actually, Mary O'Shea.
Well, no, let me start. No, that's all right.
Ms. O'Shea has not done this, spoken yet.
I don't have the details of the budget to get into
Name, please.
conversations that, Mary O'Shea, 12 Irving Avenue, have been going on. But I find it very interesting. If I recall some of the budget meetings from last year, a lot of comments were made saying that $25 tax cut was irrelevant, and why don't we raise the taxes, and we can afford to raise the taxes, and this is Englewood Cliffs, so why don't we do more, have more, and we don't need a $25 tax cut. It was going down, and how much a month or a week or a day it was, and it was a minuscule amount, and it was irrelevant. And I hear the opposite comments tonight saying the $48 that's controllable should be eliminated. I don't like tax increases. I'm not as fortunate as many people in this community are, and I like to keep the taxes low, and I like to keep the taxes low for the senior citizens and the people that are on fixed incomes, and especially many people that retired and had the benefit of an extended life. The amount of money that they received on their retirement versus and their Social Security at the time they started to collect seemed adequate. But as they lived longer and as their expenses increased, that amount is not sufficient in many cases. So I appreciate the work that's been done on the budget by the Budget Committee, by Mrs. McMorrow, and the department heads and everything to try to control expenses. At the same time, the comments are just the opposite of what I heard last year. And at the same time, I remember comments relative to criticisms of reducing the surplus, that it was hurting our bond rating. I heard that, oh my God, bellowing. We can't get these low bond ratings now because the surplus is too low. We're hurting the town. Rates are going up, that's what you hear from the World Bank and Yellen and everybody else. So the tax bond rates, interest rates are going to go up. And if we don't have sufficient surplus, a lot of those short-term notes and outstanding debt that we have will have to be renegotiated. And when it's going to be renegotiated, it's going to be renegotiated at a higher rate. And a lot of those things that we are renegotiating are old tax refunds that were never paid out of the surplus. A lot of the people that got the benefit of the low taxes are here and they're gone. And we're still paying the interest and the bond counsel and all the different legal fees that went with financing tax appeals through bonding. So the fact that it's being done through credits saves us money in the long run. It saves us the interest, it saves us the bond counsel fees and the legal fees. And some of those legal expenses from the tax appeal attorneys dragged on for years at exorbitant rates. And the one tax appeal attorney charged one rate to the Democratic majority and had doubled the rate for the Republican majority. So, you know, there's a lot of games played in all this stuff. So just please keep it in mind.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
So there's a shorter statement from me on that. First of all, in response to...
Your name again, please.
Karen Geiger, 270 Alpha,
Thank you.
where it is assigned. First of all, bond ratings. Mary, short-term notes do not go to the bond, don't go and get revisited by Moody's. It's only bonds that get Moody's rated. So our issuing short-term debt is not in any way impacted. Secondly, the characterization of the budget opposition last year, since I was one of the people who opposed the budget, I wish to speak to that because it was brought up. We objected to the mere $25 tax savings because it was on the backs of our police force. It was taking out overtime, which as the record shows was actually used, but it was on the backs of the police. It was jeopardizing, or potentially was jeopardizing what we perceived to be the services that we expected from our police department, and we were willing to spend $25 to assure that decrease in service did not come about, or that our police were not adversely affected. And as you recall, much of the year last year, and many of the lawsuits that you have, all have to do with the police issues, and many of the back and forth have to do with the use of police overtime and its generation. So that was not a small item. The comment I have on the budget has to do with the $50,000 item that you chose to fund this year for the first time, that Mr. Aversa, I believe, gave some history on it. It has to do with the payment or the beginning to budget a reserve for accrued absences. But, you know, I have a very bad habit of looking at things historically. And when I see something strange in the budget or odd or new, I go back and I try and find the source. And what I noticed is that in 2015, you had $2.2 million, $2.2 million of accrued absences that were sitting on the books, according to the local government user-friendly budget that was just posted today. In 2016, the amount was about 2.5, and now it's $2.7 million. So while I appreciate the $50,000 that you're putting in, you're not really making a dent. And if we actually had to pay for it in any major way, we would have to go for emergency appropriation and probably have to bond for it, as we have in the past, for terminal payments. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Lauren Eastwood, 4 Willow Drive. First, I'd like to correct something that Mrs. Geiger said. Short-term municipal debt is rated. It's rated on a different scale than long-term debt, which is rated AAA, AA, so on and so forth. It's rated MIG-1, MIG-2, MIG-3, but it is rated. And mutual funds that often buy short-term debt, because of the way they're regulated, have increasingly wanted ratings on the short-term debt they hold. Second, I'd like to congratulate you for paying for the tax appeals and the terminal lead out of the current budget, rather than kicking the can down the road for years and years and years and running up the borough's debt and running up the debt service, which eliminates our ability to do other things. In the last 10 years, debt has substantially increased, much of it to pay off tax appeals, including tax appeals where a council person voted on a tax appeal filed by our own client. In the meantime, our infrastructure has been falling apart. Last year or the year before, we had to have an emergency appropriation because we had to do jail repairs or otherwise the jail was going to be closed. We've all heard what horrible condition Woody Field is in, that it's, unsafe bounces and what have you. At the same time, they were raising taxes 9%, and going up the debt so they could kick the can down the road on the tax appeals. They were eliminating the ambulance corps, so now you get billed for ambulance service, which you never did before. And looking the other way at major problems such as the Morrow Road funding. What I find it very funny that they're all concerned about transparency in the budget when I sat on the council for a year and I was never even told we had a problem with Morrow Road flood. Of course, that was an allegation of problems with work done by one of former Mayor Parisi's business partners. I never once heard anybody come up and complain about the fact that they were bonding the tax appeals or that they weren't budgeting for terminal use, even though you're supposed to hold budget for foreseeable expenses, and that's really foreseeable. It's in a contract. You should be able to foresee your contractual obligations. But they never seem to notice that. Last year, they were complaining there wasn't enough surplus and crying about the bond ratings. This year, apparently, they don't matter. And I do recommend that you leave a substantial amount of surplus to address presently unforeseen expenses. For example, deductibles and co-pays on litigation, including the litigation filed by former Council President Ferraro, former Councilwoman Melanie Simon, and Mrs. Geiger. And also the possibility that everybody might actually want to take all of the money they can from their accumulated comp time, which under councilman versus contract they're allowed to do. I now hear them crying about tax rates and saving the taxpayers' money. They all voted to raise our taxes 9%, and I never once heard them wondering why our municipal tax rate was higher than, say, Franklin Lakes, which has additional services more than we have, like, for example, a library. I think that's about it. So I think that it's a good budget. I think you guys are doing a good job. I think you're being fiscally responsible. And I applaud paying current expenses out of current revenues.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, can I have a motion to close the public portion? All in favor?
Mayor, with respect to Resolution 1785, that has to be adopted first. It has to be read in full into the record. That requires 4 yeses to pass.
Okay. So what we're voting on now, well, we will be voting as soon as there's a motion made.
Mayor, I make a motion for Resolution 17-85 to amend the 2017 budget.
For a second? Okay, so what we're voting on right now is to pass the amendment to the budget, bearing in mind that a no vote will basically be a major substantial detriment to public safety, recreation programs, employee welfare and benefit. An abstention vote would be a major detriment to public safety, recreation programs, welfare of employees, benefits of employees, buildings and grounds, other services, parks, and infrastructure.
No, the clerk should read the whole, you have to read the whole thing. I'm sorry, Lizette, but that's what the statute says.
Or just the amendment? Just the
The amendment.
We're just reading
85.
17-85.
Resolution 1785, from the top to the bottom.
Resolution 1785, resolution to amend the budget. Whereas the local municipal budget for the year 2017 was approved on the 20th day of May, March 2017, Whereas the public hearing on said budget was held as advertised, and whereas it is desired to amend said approved budget, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs, County of Bergen, the following amendments to be approved budget of the 2017 be made. Anticipated revenues. Commercial sewer user fees, introduced, approved budget, $390,000. Amendment to $263,000. Subtotal revenues, Section A, from $1,771,500 to Amendment 1, $1,644,500. General capital fund balance from $273,797.16 to Amendment 1, $797,016. Subtotal revenues, Section G, from $273,797.16 to Amendment 1, $797,016. Total general revenues, $17,102,260.13 to Amendment 1, $17,102,260.13.
To continue.
Oh, read the rest of the box?
Yes.
Okay. Be it further resolved that two certified
I'm sorry, you skipped general.
total general appropriation, $17,102,260.13. Amendment 1, $17,102,260.13. Be it further resolved that two certified copies of this resolution be filed forthwith in the office of the Director of Local Government Services for the certification of the municipal budget so amended. A hearing on the budget amendment will be held at the municipal building on April 18, 2017, at 6:00 p.m., at which time and place objections of said budget amendment may be presented by taxpayers or other interested persons. It is hereby certified that this is a true copy of a resolution amending the budget adopted by the governing body on the 18th day of April 2017.
Correction, I'm sorry.
We have, okay.
I'm sorry. The first line, which says, whereas the local municipal budget for the year 2017 was approved, should be introduced.
Introduced.
Actually, that's not true.
Okay.
The technical term, I don't mean to be rude, but interrupting you. The technical term is approved.
Even though it was
We all use the
introduced.
slang introduced, but it's interchangeable. So the technical word is approved.
That's confusing.
And I learned that myself by actually reading the budget, 15, 20 years ago. And I was like, I felt the same way, so
Yeah.
it's a common interchangeable term.
And also, just my concern is the LGS has seen this as it exactly was worded and approved
Yes,
it.
it is.
So, I would prefer not to change any language in this amendment.
Mayor, we have a motion, and we have a second. Councilperson Zaversa?
Yes.
E. Park?
Yes.
O.
Yes.
McMorro?
Yes.
M. Park? Councilman Park?
Okay, we lost him.
Wu?
Yes.
Oh, there he is.
M. Park, Resolution 1785? Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Wu?
Yes.
Passes, Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion regarding Resolution 17-63.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please read it? This is the one to adopt the budget.
Whole thing again?
No. Madam Clerk, I didn't look up the statute to see if you have to read this whole resolution, so I am assuming that you don't have to read it, you can just read it by title.
Okay.
Everyone's seen this before.
17 63, Municipal Budget 2017. Be it resolved that the following statements of revenue and appropriations shall constitute the approved municipal budget for the year 2017. Mayor, we need a motion.
Second? You're welcome.
Councilperson Zaversa?
Well, I don't like the budget, not as it stands. I think that we can save the taxpayers money, and I really want it open for further discussion. So I'm going to take the councilor's advice, use what I believe is my fiduciary responsibility, and try and get the taxpayers a cut, and I'm going to abstain.
E. Park?
No.
O.
No, because, no comments? No.
No?
Just no, Mayor. I don't appreciate that smile.
McMorro?
Not that it matters, but yes.
M. Park?
Yes.
Wu?
Yes.
Mayor, we have 3 yeses, 2 nos, and 1 abstention.
And for what it's worth, if Councilman Aversa did not wrongfully disenfranchise my vote, I would have voted yes.
Okay. The budget fails. Madam Clerk,
Yes.
I'll ask you to take another vote, please.
Okay. Let me just put my...
Why do we need to take another vote?
LGS told me to continue to take a vote.
We have a fiduciary duty to show that we tried, and it actually helps our case to...
You mean your case? How do you define our
Okay.
case?
The borough's issue, we have to show that we tried as hard as we can and not prepared.
We tried to amend the
No,
budget.
we didn't hear from you for 3 months.
Doesn't matter.
All right.
It's irrelevant.
Excuse me. Let me
Mr. Aversa, the last time you were here, you said you couldn't vote yes because you were 45 minutes late.
That's not true. I said I couldn't answer.
Tonight, you were not late,
My questions
and you had no
weren't answered.
substantive issues. All your questions were
Mayor, I make
answered.
a motion to call another vote.
All right, before you do that, Councilman Aversa, is there anything you would like to discuss with the council that could have you come to a conclusion?
Absolutely.
Other than abstention?
Absolutely. If you're willing to amend the budget, to use more surplus, to get a decrease, either a flat tax or a decrease to our taxpayers, give them back their money, I think it's irresponsible for us not to do that. We will leave plenty of money in the surplus. You'll have over $600,000 in surplus. It just doesn't make any sense to me that a year ago we voted to pass a budget that would say leave $150,000 in surplus and give the taxpayers a refund. I don't see why we can't do more of that this year, especially listen to Mary O'Shea. She's absolutely right. There are people who are struggling here.
So you're willing to deprive our children
No.
over $48, you're willing to blow up our budget.
That is completely misrepresented, and you know it. That is, we are not going to roll over and die if this gets put off by a couple of weeks or to the next meeting.
We have issues if we don't pass this budget tonight, and you will be held accountable.
So I'm asking to amend the budget. That's it, I'm
I would like
asking.
to make a comment.
And you're telling me you won't listen.
I would like to make a comment as the finance chair, and please don't mischaracterize what Mrs. O'Shea was saying. In spite of what she was saying, she wasn't saying it was a $48 increase. That's not what Mrs. O'Shea was saying. So please don't mischaracterize her. But what I would like to say, Councilman Aversa, and I heard, and by the way, for the record, I did hear all of them scheming at the other end of who was going to be abstaining on this vote. Okay? Now I'm going to use the word scheming. For the record, and for the record of the Division of Local Government Services, my notes, out of the capital surplus fund, not the capital improvement fund, we were advised by the professionals not to go over $250,000 out of the amount that was there. That was their advice as a prudent number to use. We are already at 400, so we have exceeded their advice of over $150,000 on that amount alone. We were also advised, here are my notes from that date, not to exceed $1.2 million out of the cash, for cash surplus. We're at $1.3 million. The max is $1.525. So we've exceeded on both levels in order to give the taxpayers the best break that we can. It's a $48 increase, and we explained how we got to that. Well, $48 is controllable, I should say.
It's
$106.
$106.
Please do not interrupt me.
I'm trying to help you out, Carol.
I don't need your help.
It's $106,
What I need-
not
I can tell you what I need. I don't need
$48.
your help, okay? Thank you.
And the professionals
Excuse
didn't say
me.
that.
Yes, they did, Councilwoman.
You were there.
No, you
Okay,
just said that it's up to
everybody,
us.
I'm talking about the recommendation that was made by the professionals. We hire these people to give us advice. Okay, as the finance chair, I prefer to be more prudent, okay?
But Mr.
We have
Gregory
nine,
said tonight that
please
that
let
was...
me finish and
It
stop
was
interrupting.
up to us
Stop
to decide on that.
Mayor, she's out of order.
Yeah, she
Can
is
you
out
let
of
her,
order, but
please?
quite frankly, you can finish.
I just want to
You can
finish
comment
for the record. I
after.
want to read these facts into the record. They have just caused the budget to fail.
We're-
For the record,
Yeah.
for the record, we have had public budget meetings, several workshops. We have had, please do not interrupt.
Standpoint.
Okay, thank you. We have had several budget meetings. We have had workshops, budget meeting workshops. We have had caucus meetings where we have addressed this. I have endless statements that are on videotape. I have emails continually saying, I'm here, reach out to me, I will help you, I will sit with you alone, let me know what you need. No one came to me with this recommendation until today. Soundbite, our reporter's sitting right there, you're getting your soundbite. You want to make the budget fail? You're hurting the residents and taxpayers of this town. You're hurting all the projects that need to be done, the roads that need to be paved, the improvements to the buildings, to the police department. There are departments that are working on a temporary budget right now. They're working on a temporary budget because we don't have a passed budget. You will be taking full responsibility for whatever happens to this budget, these residents, and these taxpayers. And if you had something to say, it was your fiduciary duty to make that recommendation to use more surplus earlier than today.
We did.
Purely
We tried
politics.
to.
No,
You
no,
did
no,
not.
you didn't.
Stop
listening.
Let me just add, Councilman Aversa, we are probably going to end up spending more money to deal with your abstention than your philosophical difference with us would actually yield in benefits. So,
So why don't we just
So
allow
why don't we-
amended budget
we-
and fix it?
well, we've gone through that. We've gone through that. We have to actually get permission, and that's going to cost money. It's going to cost legal time, it's going to cost accounting time, it's going to cost more time. And in the meantime, we're not getting anywhere. So we're really not too far apart. You know, I realize that there's an election and everything, but let's put that aside.
No, you don't have to put it
We're not
aside.
really,
Never put it aside.
we're not too far apart. Hold on,
I know, but...
let me finish. We're not too far apart. So what I'm suggesting is that you change your vote, and we work with you going forward on other things that are more productive together to get this town where you want it to be and where I want it to be. Because there are other things that we need to work on, right?
I understand.
We're not really too far apart on this, other than, you know, whatever everybody's fighting over. But it's substantively, and in terms of hard dollars, we're close. We're close. So I'm just asking you to reconsider your vote, and let's get to a place where we could turn around to the town and say, look, we work together, we listen to everybody, we'll try to do better in the future, we're taking steps together. Join me in doing those steps. Join me in making this a better town, okay? I'm asking you to reconsider.
And Councilman Aversa, I'll just make one observation, that your statements with respect to your abstention are more along the lines of wanting to vote no than to abstain.
Don't misinterpret. Please don't do that.
Oh,
Let's
my
not
God,
go-
now you're gonna do it.
So let me just make it clear.
I understand
My
what you're
vote,
saying.
I'll make it very clear.
Yes.
My vote is neither a yes nor a no.
It's a
The
non-vote.
reason, it's a non-vote, and the reason is because I'm asking this council to please consider amending this budget to increase the surplus use, and decrease the tax increase. That's it. It's not that
Honest,
complicated.
Councilman
Like
Everett,
the mayor
honestly,
said.
I don't think we can touch more of that surplus and be prudent, because, look, as people mentioned tonight, borrowing costs are going up. We're going to be borrowing at a higher rate. If we could get a better bond rating, we could basically keep our borrowing costs where we are now
I
or lower,
understand that.
as the rest of the state, which is pretty messed up, by the way, their costs are going up. So,
I'm
please.
not saying to deplete the...
No, but...
I'm saying reduce
but we're
it
actually
from
not-
900 to 600.
In reality, though, we're not too far apart.
Exactly.
And you and I, although we disagree on a lot of things, we can agree on one thing, which is that we have to be prudent here. And we cannot, and as I understand it, we can't touch too much more of that surplus. And so it's really going to be immaterial what you're making a stand on. What I'd like to do is actually work with you on more productive things. We have the recreation department, we have the fields coming up, we have other things that we need to move on as a borough, as a council. So I'm just asking you, pass the budget with me, and then we will deal with the other things. All right?
Why can't
You
we
always-
carry the meeting, have a
Well,
discussion?
I was talking to Mr.
There's-
Rivers.
There's been a motion, there's a
Please.
pending motion to take a second vote.
Well,
on the
there's one more
budget.
comment.
It just, very well said, Mayor, and it's Councilman Aversa. I don't want you to think that we don't wish with you. Councilman Aversa? Councilman Aversa?
Yes, ma'am, I'm listening.
Oh, okay, you were talking to Councilman Park. I don't want you to think that we're not considering what you're saying or agreeing that we wish that it could be lower. My statement is, guys, this is really important. My statement is that, given the max was 1.5 and we're at 1.3, you're naming other numbers that were never said to me that could be used. The max is 1.5, 2.5. We're at 1.3. We already went over what was recommended to me by the professionals in the capital surplus fund. We already went 150 over where they were comfortable going. So my statement to you, even though I would love to lower taxes and get rid of that $48 increase, which isn't within our control, I don't believe that we are being responsible or prudent to our borough and taxpayers and residents by pushing the envelope from 1.3 to 1.5. We have 9 lawsuits with this borough. We already increased our legal line to $300,000. There are so many areas that are unknowns to us. And to push that surplus number to a place where we have nowhere else to go is just not responsible. It's not that we're not hearing you. We are hearing you. And I wish we could. But I wouldn't sleep comfortably at night knowing that we pushed it to the degree that you want to push it to. It's not that we don't want to give our residents that $48 back. I wish we could, but I'm not comfortable in fear that something else could go wrong, and then what do? We're putting everybody at jeopardy, and it's just not a roll of the dice that
You know, and I appreciate that. And I would just add, Ed, you voted no on the introduction, and nothing has really changed between the introduction and today. So that's not going to bode well, because Ellen voted to abstain, now she's voting no. So nothing has changed really between the introduction and today. So, we got to just put the politics aside and get this thing done.
I'm trying to.
Not much is going to change, even if you could take more surplus. There's not that much more surplus that we could take.
We can take enough to make it flat.
Not really. You don't have numbers. You didn't come here with numbers and crunch those numbers. No, you didn't
Why
crunch
can't we
them.
have a discussion then?
You didn't actually, you didn't actually crunch the numbers to come out with where the budget ends up if you take whatever more you could take of the surplus. I wouldn't think it's prudent, but even if you could take a little more, you're not going to change the result, just like we didn't change the budget really between the introduction and today. So, and we haven't heard from you, so it's not credible to just sit here and say, I'm going to abstain, when you voted no on the introduction. That was a real vote.
Well, if you should
And then-
understand, then I didn't like it then.
No, but this is a game, because I'm reading one of the Facebook posts from Ellen Park. She writes on April 4th, there seems to be a misconception in town that I abstained from voting on Whitty Field. I abstained from voting on the introduction of the budget. Ed Aversa and Gloria O voted no on the introduction of the budget. There is no line item on the budget for the potential Whitty Field project.
Yes.
There actually is a line item. We went over that tonight.
It doesn't say Whitty Field.
No, it doesn't, because it hasn't been approved.
Right,
Please,
because people are getting the misconception.
But it's there, and you wrote this. Please look for yourself on the town's website. Look, you guys gotta take the politics out of this. It's very clear that you're doing that. Vote yes or vote no, but don't abstain, because really, it's not me, guys. I'm gonna do this for the taxpayers of this town and the borough. If you abstain, I'm gonna take every legal means available to try to get you, whatever you deserve, because it's not right. I am actually, because we have spent a lot of time doing
It sounds like
this.
a threat to me.
I'm trying to work with you, and you laugh. But you know what? The state of New Jersey, when they take over our budget, folks,
They're not.
when they take it over,
They're not.
the
We
kids
have
are,
time.
the kids are gonna lose because of you.
You know what? They're not
The
going to
seniors
take
are gonna
over.
lose because of you.
We have time until the next
The roads are
meeting.
gonna be...
doing big now until
We're
then.
not
No,
rushing.
listen,
Now you went backwards.
the state of New
You know what? Why
Jersey...
didn't you try being a little nicer to us? Maybe we should work with
It's
you.
not about nice. The
No,
state
you
of New
should've thought about
Jersey
this
is going to
before.
take over your budget, okay?
Now you need one of our votes, and you're
I'm gonna
begging.
go. I don't need your vote. The
You're
taxpayers,
begging.
the
You're
taxpayers of
begging. You
this
should have
town...
been nicer before.
No, I don't have to be nice to you. I just have to be professional.
Don't be nice to me, but you should be
The
nice.
taxpayers, I'm doing this for the taxpayers of this town. You are screwing them all, okay?
Yeah, right.
Every one of you.
Okay,
For the record,
can we
you
please
should-
go to a vote?
Mayor, for the record, Councilwoman O said, you should have been nicer to her before you need my vote. That's disgusting.
No, I said you need
play
one
the
of our
second.
votes.
No, I don't need your vote.
You
You
know
vote
what?
no,
You
you
keep
vote
saying we're
yes.
being political, and just admit
I
it.
just-
You're being political too.
Ellen Park's Facebook post says it all. She's being
You know what?
political. She abstained, and now it's your turn to abstain. This is the game you play.
I have ever met in my life.
This-
And not only that, but you are rude to me, and I've never had a relationship with you until I came to the dais. And all you do is demean me and say some nasty things, and you know what? I am tired of it.
Well,
I
you-
never spoke up against you, but you know what? I am telling everybody in town the way you speak to me.
You do that
up at the
anyway.
dais.
You wrote
Okay.
to the state,
You know what? All
defaming
you
me.
have
What
to
do I
do is
care?
watch the video and see how you
That's
behave
right.
at the mayor council meeting.
So now I've just been, led to believe that I could get legal action by the mayor against me for abstaining. I want to know what that means. I'm not an attorney. He's an attorney, and he's threatening me with legal action. I want to know what that means.
Okay.
Because that's a threat to my vote. I can vote any way I damn well please, but I'd like to know.
No, you have to vote yes or no.
I don't have to, that's
Yes,
not
you
true.
do.
No.
On the budget, it's a dereliction of your duty.
It is not.
Let Anne Marie explain.
Anne Marie, I'm asking you as our borough attorney, what is he talking about?
Okay, there are any number of options, as I said earlier, for a failed budget. You heard me say there could be litigation, it's
I need an
a
example.
possibility. I'll give you a possible litigation. The ones that just came out a couple of years ago between Hoboken and North, both towns had the vacancy in the governing body, and both towns had abstentions, and both towns went to court. That could be an example of litigation. Is it against you? No, it's against, it's trying to get the budget passed and doing the right thing. The memorandum that was sent to LGS tried to make sense of the varying case law and the varying statutes and all of that. The fact of the matter is, where there is not a reasonable third choice, you should be voting yes or no. You may delay this, and then we may come back on May 11th, and there isn't going to be any further amendment. I think the mayor made a very telling observation that your vote was yes on the introduction. I'm sorry, no on the introduction, and now you're abstaining when there is no substantial change of any kind to make you change that vote. It does look like game playing, but, and I don't want to mischaracterize what you're doing. I heard what you said, and legally, I can't tell you, that sounds like a yes versus a no, but it sounds like a no.
Very
Not an
respectfully.
abstention.
Very respectfully, I'm giving you a way out. I'm giving you a way out to work with me.
From what?
What you just said.
Listen,
I'm giving you a way out, all right? You have a path to a solution. We can work together on things, but you can't just be an obstructionist, because you voted no. I respect the no vote, but nothing has changed.
That's not true. Everything is.
Nothing has changed.
I now realize we have a lot more money in the surplus than we thought.
No, we don't.
No,
That's
no, no. You
We're at
don't.
1.3, and the max is 1.5, and
That-
and they
that's
advised us
recommended.
not to, they advised us not to go over 1.2.
Those
Play
are the
the
same-
tape.
But those are the same numbers.
Play the
Right,
tape
but
from
those-
that meeting,
but-
they advised us not to go over 1.2.
And it doesn't matter that you realize it today. Those same surplus numbers were here a month ago, okay? Respectfully, you have a way to resolve this.
And to
That's all I can say.
I just did a quick calculation for the other three members. To have a flat increase, which is what they said they want, we would have to utilize approximately $300,000 more in surplus. It's $38, Catherine and I have done the calculation.
That's what I figured as well.
Okay. That puts us over the max that they recommended we should never even go near.
That's not
That
true.
is irresponsible. It is true.
That's not true.
It is true.
That's not what he said. He's right there asking. He didn't say what, he,
1.5 was the max.
But I think that my issue is, it was okay to leave $150,000 in the surplus last year, and now I'm asking you to leave $600,000. That's almost six
But it's
times
not
what we did last time.
600,000. You're saying it is.
No, those are numbers. I'm asking you to take 300 out of the
It's
915
not.
and
We were
914
told
that's
not to
left.
go, the max is 1.5, and they recommend not to go over 1.2.
I hear
You're
you.
asking us to go against our borough professionals' advice.
I'm asking you to
Here's the thing.
leave six times
If
more
something
in
goes wrong,
surplus
who's
than what
gonna
they
be
last year.
responsible?
Councilman Aversa, we have unfunded liabilities contingent that we won't know about until November, okay? And we can't walk down that path. We need to leave that money there. And I just ask you respectfully to come on board, or vote no. But don't hold up government. The people put us up here for government to function, to move forward. And unfortunately, we need 4 out of 6. I don't know why they do that, but we do, okay? So,
Yes.
look, and other things you don't, right?
I would appreciate the compromise from Councilman Aversa, since as the budget chair, I am just really not comfortable, if nothing else, not comfortable going past the 1.3. When Catherine called me today and told me that it was an error, it was just an error, not fault of any of ours, there was a calculation error in the sewer fees, and that had to be changed at the last minute, and that's what caused that additional $127,000, that we had to take another $127,000. I was holding my breath with that, but that's out of our control. But to them, on top, it's just something that is not comfortable. You know, what if we get hit with 3 more lawsuits? What if we
not
have
only
to
that,
hire 3 more lawyers? This is a reality in this town.
We have the
And I
contingent
just-
liabilities.
I'm asking you if you would compromise on this, and, I mean, listen, you're free to vote however you want to vote.
Well, why don't we compromise and amend the budget to use less of the surplus than I'm asking?
I just told you what the numbers are.
We already
We're over the
went,
max already.
hold up, we already went another 100,000 today, because,
127,000.
127,000 today because of the miscalculation.
Wait. No, that's
that's not true.
There's no miscalculation. We
The
received the
amendment.
tax rate
Right.
today.
The tax rate today, right.
The sewer
Right,
rate.
so-
Sewer rate, yes.
The rate went down, so we lost that revenue, we had to make it up.
Right, we had a, correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Point well
Sorry,
taken.
so much.
So, Ed, we already lost that 127,000 of revenue today. Look, the people in this town keep saying, work together. I'm asking you to work with me.
All right, so.
All right, yeah.
Please call for a second vote.
Okay,
Yeah.
just call for the,
Let's have a vote.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Can I take the vote?
Please.
Councilperson Zaversa.
Sorry, so that's abstain. I really think we need to make it flat, or reduce.
Okay.
There's
Park?
room to do so.
No.
O.
No.
McMorro.
Yes.
M. Park.
Yes.
Wu.
Yes.
Mayor, the final vote is 3 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 abstention. It does not pass.
And again, I would have voted yes.
The resolution in the budget does not pass.
Okay.
There's unfinished business.
So a motion to adjourn.
No, there's still unfinished and new
Second.
business. There's still unfinished and new business on the agenda
Yes, you
There's
can
no
mention
business.
further.
There's no business.
No, well, there's unfinished business, so I have a question, right?
Is there a second to the motion?
I have a question.
Typical, you're not gonna-
So, yeah, you're not gonna let me talk again, so.
What else do you
Okay,
have to say?
so Catherine wasn't here last time, she was absent, she was feeling sick at the last meeting, so I just want to have clarification regarding the billing. Can you just explain what we should do if I have if I have a problem with the billing?
Yes.
What the
If you have
procedure is.
a problem with the billing, it is a miscommunication, a misunderstanding. It doesn't, my policy does not negate the council's ability to pull a bill off the payment of claims. If it's a minor issue or clarification, I would ask that you pass it, I would hold the check back. There is a bill that was on that payment of claims that I had to get more clarification for myself that had nothing to do with your inquiry. In the case of our borough attorney,
February 8th.
right, I probably would have asked that you proceeded to approve it, I would hold the check. The check still is on hold, until,
Yes,
our borough attorney
yeah.
clarifies that with you.
Yeah, and I had
Because
asked to speak with her, but it's very easily explainable, and
The question is
I will
whether
do
the
that in
request
writing
from
as
form
requested.
is a clarification. However, if there is a major concern, I will even make your statement. But,
So don't approve it, just, you're saying you're...
right, if you want to pull, as an elected official, pull a bill, absolutely, you have the right to pull.
That's what we tried to do at the last meeting,
and we
I
were
think you should
advised.
do it before the meeting.
Right, do it before, but you made it clear, on that specific instance, on Anne Marie's, you would have advised them to pay it, and you would hold the check.
I would have recommended on that minor issue with the bill
Thank
to
you.
pay it.
Okay.
But
Right.
my recommendation doesn't override the council. The council would then decide what to do.
No, exactly, but it is procedurally, in the past, practice always been you pull it before the council meeting, so that people have the opportunity to see what the check
Right,
is.
if it made it to the payment of claims,
Right.
that's usually what
Right.
happens.
Right.
So,
'Cause I need justification as to pull a check, not to pull a check, why we're pulling a check. I can't just arbitrarily pull a check.
no, you
Right.
need a motion and, you know.
But I need to know what the check is, what it's for, and, right? Right, okay, that's all.
But you have the right to pull a bill. I may recommend that you proceed with the bill, but, by no means would I override governing body.
Thank you.
May I make a suggestion?
Is it new business? Or-
Yeah, I guess. New business.
Whatever you want to say.
Can I,
Put the mic on.
oh, sorry. Can is it possible, I'll ask Amber too, is it possible to make a motion to ask the council to send an amendment to the budget to, we always have BLDS, whatever, that acronym. Because you said we had to do that.
We haven't introduced it.
Yeah,
And that gets into what one, I think we said.
You know,
Have you-
I don't think that,
Oh, here, with-
what we do is, what we did today, for example, was send this down as, we are seeking approval for this amendment. We didn't send it down and say, well, maybe we're gonna amend it, and maybe we're not gonna amend it. We want to amend it, here it is, in the exact wording, and with the exact numbers dealt with. So, I would be reluctant to send them something that maybe we're gonna consider. I think that this is probably answered within our bylaws on how to get something on the agenda and how to proceed, but I can't answer you right now.
I would not be in favor of amending it. Councilman Aversa, what I would say to you is that, in the true meaning of the word abstention, it means that you just didn't do the work required to get comfortable with a yes or a no.
I disagree.
A month ago, you were comfortable with a no. There's been no substantial changes to the budget since then. I just think it's a bad path that you're walking down right now on behalf of the borough and its people, its residents. You've heard everyone tonight. It won't be forgotten.
I hope they don't forget that I tried to save the money.
You didn't try to
No, you
save the
didn't.
money. Let's stop this,
You
okay?
think-
We're paying legal fees for what's going on
We're
here.
going to spend so much more
$48,000.
money dealing with this problem that you have now created.
So, council, are you saying that I shouldn't make that motion, or?
No, I don't think it's a valid motion, but I can't really speak on how that would work, but I certainly would make an inquiry.
Would you mind making
I will
that
make an inquiry.
This is the one time a few times in life you get to unring the bell that you rang. You have the chance to unring it right now, okay? But when we leave here tonight, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make sure that we pass the budget one way or another that we proposed and we worked on without you. And all the expense of doing that is going to land at your doorstep, however I am entitled to do that by law.
So, Mayor, basically what you're telling me is you're not willing to work at all.
No, I am actually. I did.
You said.
No, I did. We had 3.5 months of no news from you. No news from you. 3.5 months, nothing.
You're asking us to be irresponsible and jeopardize the well-being of this borough. And I'm looking at this reporter here, and I hope he's going to report to every resident why this budget is failing, okay?
No, it's not.
When the recreation departments and all these other departments that are working on temporary budgets will probably have to cut back on things because of the actions of Councilman Aversa, make sure that his contact information is given out.
We are going to have to deal with the absence of a budget starting tomorrow morning, and that's unfortunate, Mr. Vogt.
Very unfortunate.
You have a chance to unring the bell. We rarely get that chance. Do you wish to unring the bell?
I don't know what you're referring to.
I think you
You
already
wanna-
answered your question.
I'm asking you,
I want me to vote.
I love to give people second and third chances. I'm giving you another chance. Because when down the road, when you look at me and say, why did you do that? I want to be able to say to you, we had to do that for the borough, and you had 3 chances. I'm not threatening you. We have legal rights on behalf of the
I'd
borough.
like to know, he's threatening me personally, I'd like to know, am I personally liable as a councilman sitting up here?
Councilman Aversa.
Don't worry about the politics, I'll take that.
I'm just going to play it straight like I always try to do. I do not interpret the mayor as being personally attacking you as personally liable. Your actions are being done here as a sworn council member of this borough council. So no, I don't think you have personal liability. I think there is responsibility that each one of you has in owning your vote and the consequences of it. There are consequences, and we will see where the chips fall.
Okay.
And I don't think that's a threat.
All right, so what consequences are we talking about, like political? Because that's
No,
not...
I'm not talking about it.
The borough has rights. The borough has rights, and I'm going to assert every right available to the borough. As simple as that.
Okay, you do that, Mayor. I have a solution. And I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we have a workshop between now until the next mayor council meeting. Let's have a discussion about where we can save
That's a
money,
valid point.
how much of a surplus that we could increase. Let's have a discussion.
Where were you people for 3 months?
Instead of,
3 months.
excuse me.
Where were you?
You know what,
Where were you? Now.
Maybe you should have reached out to us.
It's irrelevant that
And
you
we
wasted
needed
3
one of
months.
our votes to pass the
All of a
budget.
sudden, you're running this year, and you're talking.
Now it
You've
gets
been
interesting
talking
for you.
3 years.
Now it gets
Spoken for
interesting.
3
Yes,
years.
that's right.
You mean, I think you're talking about somebody else on the council, not me.
But there's a motion and a second, so...
Right, let's take a roll
We
call.
had 3 months of no news from you people, and now all of a sudden, it becomes
You know what?
important.
This
Now we have a
is,
chance to talk about it.
3
So-
months.
yeah. Well, today's the first time that I see that the
Give a
mayor
motion,
and, council
Someone-
president,
There's a
there's
motion on the
a
floor,
motion.
Council.
Well, you have to get Councilman Park on the phone then.
I haven't hung up with them.
Oh, he's still there? Oh, my God.
He's still here.
Well, we're still here too,
Yeah.
so don't feel so
We had a
bad.
family emergency.
Oh, I didn't know that. How would I know that? We don't share information with
I don't even know what the motion is.
All right, so Gloria, you want to restate your
Yeah.
motion?
You don't need a
I-
resolution to have a workshop.
I'd
okay?
like to make a motion.
We don't need a
to
resolution
ha-
for a workshop.
I didn't say that.
No, they want a motion.
I want a motion to have a workshop.
Yes, is going to say after what happened. Guys, I don't think you understand. We need to find out what repercussions we're facing right now from the DLGF. I know you guys think it's real fun to all of a sudden have a meeting after 4 months of being through this. We need to find out what's going on right now, okay? And that's what this borough attorney needs to find out for all of us immediately, so that our borough administrator can advise all our department heads what money they're allowed to spend. Because guess the budget fails.
right.
So that's our first
So let's not waste time, let's have a
responsibility to
meeting.
do.
Yeah, let's have
I
a
don't know
discussion.
what-
No, we don't know.
We're so close. We're allowed to do
Yeah, like you
anything.
say, we are so
We
close.
don't know.
No,
You-
but we
So
don't...
you don't even want an opportunity to work together
No,
here.
that-
We
that-
had
Like,
one
no.
workshop.
Listen, here, no, we had...
You're just upset because you didn't get to vote, period.
Well, that's the game
And,
you play, but
you're really
here's
not
the
looking
problem.
to work with us.
It is a
Yeah,
game.
it's really
Well,
not
how
a
can
game.
she abstain one day and then you abstain the next day? It's
They have their
a
right
game.
to abstain.
It's a game. No, they
And
don't.
you're just upset because you couldn't vote.
Here's the thing, folks. Tomorrow morning, let me finish. Tomorrow morning, you are going to adversely affect many lives in this town, and it's going to be your fault.
All right, let's make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, there's a motion
There's a
on the floor, we
motion
have
on
to
the
vote.
floor for
No,
discussion.
all right, you
Well,
can
they're
have your
saying
motion,
that
but
they're
once you
denying my
understand...
right to make a motion
Do
to have a
you-
discussion, so...
You need to understand that we don't know what the ramifications
Right,
are
we have to find
right
out.
now of failing a budget, okay?
That's the
Other
first
than,
issue.
I know that we don't have a budget, and we have a responsibility to cut all spending tomorrow, okay?
so-
And that's what you're creating.
You're saying you don't know what the ramifications
Mayor,
are?
I'm making a motion to direct the borough attorney to find out what we do at this point. That's the first thing anybody...
No, we already had a motion. There was- We already had a motion on the floor. Yeah, I think she knows the
She knows
answer.
the answer. So
She looks like she knows the answer.
I'd love to hear. So what's next?
Well, first of all, we'll probably prepare an amendment to the temporary budget so that the borough can
Okay, pay the bills,
operate,
yeah, of
but at
course.
a limited capacity. So
Got
we're
it.
still on temporary budget. The division still would have to be contacted to see if there's no ability to deal with this impasse that you're experiencing, and then they would give us guidance. If we continue to have an impasse, chances are the division will render the decision on this municipality's budget.
And that means they could lay people, that means that the division could come in and explain.
Can you please let her finish, since you didn't know the answer?
I'm asking
My
professionally.
interpretation.
They have an obligation as the state to make certain that this municipality still operates in a safe manner. However, that does give them latitude to make changes to that budget.
And can I also just fill in as far as the time frame? When the state has to take over a budget, they have to go through procedures to take it over, and then it goes to the local finance board for public hearings at the local finance board. And so you are talking probably September or October if we are lucky and we get there that quickly.
And we're going to probably
I'm just
spend
letting you
a
know.
substantial amount of money to deal with this problem.
But we're trying to resolve it before the next regular
I've been
meeting.
trying to do that before.
Yeah,
I don't
we're trying
understand
to-
what the issue is. It really is.
Mayor, I need the public to understand, and with that delay, that means we cannot, we have no budget, we can't introduce our capital ordinances, roads will not get paved, no improvements to the borough buildings will be made. All purchases that all department heads are waiting to be improved by the capital ordinances that we haven't even introduced, because we're waiting for the budget to get introduced, are all delayed. We had money waiting on a grant, for the grant to be completed. We may lose that, because there's a deadline for that to be completed by, because we didn't pass the budget tonight.
That was
There
road
are-
paving?
That was the Charlotte place that we, for the first time in a very long time, we got awarded a grant. That has to be done by a deadline. There are
What is
so
the
many
deadline?
ramifications that what your actions have caused. I don't think you understand what you guys just did. But
There's a motion on the table, so let's just vote.
What are you voting on? What are you voting on?
The motion
She made a
that was
motion.
made
The
was
motion
to have
discussion.
Have a
It-
To have a workshop
We're-
for discussion.
We don't know what the ramifications are to have a discussion, so we need to figure that out first. Of course, we'll have workshops and talks, but
Okay.
right now, tomorrow morning, I'm going to ask Catherine to cut all unnecessary spending, because we don't have a budget, okay? And that's the result.
It should always be like that.
That's,
Unnecessary spending.
no, it's really funny, right? I
You
can't wait,
just said to cut all
I can't wait to
unnecessary
read your
spending.
Facebook post tonight, okay?
Oh,
That's
great. You're not friends with me, so
I
I don't know
don't know
how you're
what-
getting my Facebook posts.
It's interesting reading.
Are you stalking me?
It's,
Oh, come on,
Please.
this is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Really, it's
So-
ridiculous.
Catherine, thank you for answering that question.
So Catherine, tomorrow, because Mr. Aversa abstained,
By the way.
Councilman Aversa
That's good.
abstained, we need to look at what we're spending money on and just cut it back, because this could be an impasse that goes on to October. And that's it. We'll talk.
Is that cut overtime?
It's police overtime.
Yeah,
That's
see,
gonna
Mary,
affect
I solved that
everything.
problem. You're welcome, Mayor.
It's not a joke.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm asking you guys to work with me. You're not willing to, so.
No, that's not true. Stop with the sound bites. Can we move on then?
Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
There's a motion, there's a motion on the,
Is there a motion to adjourn?
we have an open motion.
What's the motion?
A motion for a
You crushed
workshop.
my motion.
Councilwoman O,
Can you repeat your motion, Councilwoman?
and
Ho?
there
I'd
was
like
a
to make a
second.
motion.
Oh, you make it, or you would like to make it?
I make a motion, Mr. Mayor, and don't make that face. You're talking down on me. It's sort of like demeaning.
You want to withdraw your motion?
No, I'm making a motion. I'm making a motion for us to have a workshop next week before our
What's
mayor
your
council
work-
meeting.
what-
We don't
In
even
3
need a
weeks,
motion to have a
because like you
workshop.
said,
You don't
you
need,
said, we are very close.
when did we ever
So
get a
why
motion
why don't
to
you
have a
try
workshop?
to work with
That's
us?
what we don't.
Okay, if you want us to work with you, just try to work with us.
You're holding the town hostage? I understand that.
No,
But
you
we
don't-
don't need a
you know
motion.
what?
We don't need a.
We don't need a motion to
We don't
have
need
a
a motion,
workshop.
then let's have
What you need is people to figure out.
Can we have an agreement
We
to
need to hear
have,
from the guidance from the borough administrator tomorrow about where we are. That's our first step. That's what we need to do, and we will all wait to hear from the borough administrator.
You just said you're from an amended budget, and so the town can function.
yeah, we'll have a temporary budget.
It's under three, it's no problem.
So
It's
what's
not
that,
gonna
is
be-
there a motion, or is there
No, there is a motion and a second, unless you want to withdraw
We
it.
don't need a motion for a
Well,
meeting.
but just schedule a meeting.
But she has to
It
withdraw
doesn't-
it.
then
It-
It's not a legal
Robert's
motion.
It's not, it's a meaningless motion. We never have motions to have workshops.
I mean,
We just call them on the proper notice with proper advertising. I don't know why you're like in the weeds on this stuff, but focus on the budget is what should have happened, and now you're not doing it until tonight. All of a sudden, it's very important tonight, everyone, that they have to focus on the budget. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh my God, 4 hours.
Yeah, we just